Okay, so officially welcome, Sally.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. So yeah, we just started a conversation about sleep and trying to get deeper sleep and than normal in a shorter period of time. So just saying that you can drop into a delta sleep mode, which is where your brain waves are cycling at about 2 to 3 cycles per second. It's deeply restful, and if you can do that in meditation, then you don't need as much time. You can drop into deep sleep very quickly. You don't need the 2, 3, 4 hours of REM sleep to get there. So often, advanced meditators don't need to sleep as much because they're getting their rest in the meditation. And if you're in time, you're on the timeline of consciousness. It's very wearing because our minds are busy and active. So when they're busy and there's lots of thoughts, then there's lots of brainwave, there's lots of neural activity, and that equates to a brainwave, a higher frequency of brainwave pattern. So the brainwave state is just a measure of the amount of neural activity. So how much are you thinking? And if you're thinking all the time, that's very wearing for the brain, and we feel tired when that happens. So that kind of roots us into the brain body consciousness, and then we get fatigued quite easily. Whereas if you're staying in an alpha state, or even lower theta or delta, your mind doesn't really get tired in that state. It's restful for the mind. So in a flow state, you'd be in an alpha state. That's anywhere between 8 and 13 cycles per second, and it feels like, yeah, you can go for a long time. It's very restful. There's none of that high frequency stress that comes with overthinking. Whereas if you look at the timeline here, it's just see on my screen. You're on the timeline, and you're constantly thinking about past or future, and all of this red stuff. Your mind is going to be constantly busy with that, and that's very very wearing. You can't really sustain a high beta state would be, say, 20, anywhere from about 13 cycles, 13 hertz, 13 cycles per second to maybe 25. Well, at sort of in those frequency ranges, your mind is quite active and busy, and you get tired. It's not able to stay there for that long, and that's when you get that kind of, you can get really fatigued, and it's like, I want to zone out, I want to time out, I need to sleep. Or often people then self-medicate, so they'll use a substance like red wine's a good one. People, yeah, I don't drink it, but people do it because it takes them down into an alpha state, and so it kind of rests, gives the mind some rest. But obviously, the problem is using a substance to get there. And if you overdo it, then the substance has toxic effect. So you can get the same effect with meditation. Just drop yourself into an alpha state and rest the mind, and then that's the way you get your rest. And if you go deeper, as you advance in meditation practice, you can drop into theta and delta quite quickly. So theta is anywhere between 4 and 8 cycles per second. So that's where we have kind of dreaming. That's a dreaming type sleep. So if you're awake in theta, you can be very creative. You can get all kinds of creative ideas, intuitions. That's where that kind of stuff happens. And then below that is delta, which is 2 to 4 cycles per second, which is equated with deep sleep. So the mind is very, very peaceful, very slow brainwave pattern. Like the mind is really still, and they've hooked yogis and advanced meditators up to ECG machines to measure this stuff. And they see when they're in these deep states of meditation that it's a theta, or even down below that into a delta state. They're in a delta state, but they're actually awake. There's kind of an awareness there. They haven't slipped into sleep. They haven't gone unconscious. They're actually still awake and aware, but they're in this very restful delta state. And so that's very peaceful and very restful. And you can only really achieve that when you're in the now. Because if you're thinking about past and future, that generates all kinds of brainwave activity that that takes your brainwaves into or your brainwave state into a much higher state, which is not very restful. And so the brainwave activity, that's not really the driver of this, but it's the result. So what's quite useful is we can now measure these things, and you can go, okay, well, we can actually measure the effects of consciousness through brainwave states and other physical measures, but brainwave activity is one of the primary ones, because that seems to be correlated with the activity of our mind, brain and mind. So we look at the integral model. It's just the brainwave states are the external effect. Integral, where are we? It's in the external behavioral level. The brainwave states exist there. So that's not the driver. The driver is the mind. So what's going on in your intentions? Are you in the now? Are you calm? Are you happy? Are you peaceful? And then that's going to be reflected in things like the brainwave state, which is an observed, measurable outcome. More recently, in the last, say, 50 years, they've been experimenting with technology called binaural beats. So what the binaural beat does is it kind of tricks the brain into believing that there is a frequency in each ear. It's not actually the case, but it sets up a pattern where the brain goes, oh, actually, there's this kind of resonance pattern going on. And then the brainwaves start to entrain, it's called. They entrain to that frequency. So that's pretty useful technology, actually, because I use it all the time. Because what it then does is it just helps the brainwaves to settle into that lower, slower pattern, which then corresponds with the internal state of deep rest. So you kind of drop into that more quickly. And so now you've got a technology on the external that can help you to get into deeper states of awareness, deeper states of consciousness. So it's possibly the most, in my view, one of the most interesting, powerful uses of technology, because it changes consciousness, and that is fundamental. So then you can use a technique like breathing and a mantra or whatever for your meditation, but you add in binaural beats. It's kind of giving you a little bit of help from that, and then you can drop into these deeper states more quickly. So when I meditate, I use it. It's like, well, it just helps you to go into a deeper state. I do breathing, and I've got techniques I use as well. So it just enhances it. You can probably drop into those states anyway, but maybe not quite as deep and not quite as quickly as with the help. So it's just a little kind of enhancement, and also it cuts out all other noise. So if there's anything else going around you've really just got the surround sound of, I just use a rain sound. So people have actually known this for millennia, that you're like listening to flowing water or a river flowing, or the ocean. These kinds of nature sounds help us to go into these altered states, which is why they're now used as the basis of these binaural beat frequencies, because they help us to go into these slower states. But so it's actually, again, it's nothing. The binaural beats are nothing new. They've been doing it in Tibet and the East for centuries, but they just use different technology. So they've got like the bowls, the singing bowls and the bells, and they use that to set up the binaural beat pattern. And now we've just got technology that allows it to be recorded, and you stick it on with headphones. It's just quicker and easier than having to have someone ringing the bowl to create it. But they knew about it millennia ago, that when these kinds of things like the the chanting and the sounds, the bowls and the gongs and all of this. That this would help to take people into an altered state of a deeper state of consciousness, which is where they could then connect with spirits, with the source. And so then they became part of the tradition of that, whatever that spiritual tradition was or religious tradition was, because it worked. They could see that it took people into these deeper states. So it's now just been modernized and put into binaural beats, but again, it's got very ancient roots, and we're just using technology to kind of make it quicker and easier. And so we're very fortunate. Technology does many things, and some are quite good and some bad, but you can actually use it in this day and age to really advance your spiritual practice greatly. I mean, look at what Zoom, this use of technology is doing for you. Okay, just drop in. You don't have to go travel. You just instantly you're in there. You can have your little dive into this frequency for 2-3 hours a day, and then off you go. And it hasn't taken you any time or energy to travel, and then instantly you just carry on with your life. Or you've got a client, you can log off and you're right there. So it's made this kind of thing very accessible. It's accelerating people's spiritual growth if it's used right. If it's used wrongly, which unfortunately a lot of the time it is, then it's actually a huge distraction. All of the social media and all of the devices, and it's just distraction. What will I jump onto now? And then people spend hours on Facebook and Twitter and these social media platforms, and they're not really accomplishing anything. There's no real. They're not changing their state of mind. They're not going anything deeper. It's just on the surface level noise, and it's not really advancing their spiritual growth at all. But again, you can use social media correctly. You could use it to, like these tools like Telegram and Facebook and so on. You can use it to get a message across that will help people. So it's like anything. It's what the purpose that you give it is, and that's what Yeshua's been talking about the last couple of chapters of the sections of the text. What is the purpose that you give to everything? Set that up front, and then it will follow. So, if your purpose is awakening, then you see technology as a great benefit, an accelerator to that, and then the purpose of the technology is given. If you see technology as a way to entertain your mind, and you give it short-term frivolous entertainment, then that's what you'll use it for. So set the purpose first, and then the behavior and the outcomes will follow. And technology will be used accordingly. So it's neither good nor bad. It's just what you choose to use it for. Mostly, I think it would be hard to maybe justify, say, an atomic bomb as good in any way, shape, or form, because its only purpose is destruction. But with most other things, there can be a dual purpose. It can go one way or another, depending on how you choose to use it. Yeah. Anyway, a little. Reflection on technology and how it can help us or not. So I hope that's useful. So anything to check in on or share?
Well, listening to you talk about sleep, it's making me think, it's a habit I've got, beliefs to release around it. I have resistance to doing nothing in the evenings. So I end up going to bed to stop doing things.
Okay.
I will focus on intending to be in the now in the evenings. I'll try out the binaural beats, and I'll play with it some more.
Yeah. Try it out. Just see how these things work. If you're doing meditation, it's not a big deal to whack on a frequency. You can get them. There's many apps. Just download them. Ultimately, where I want to go with this is that all of these meditations after letting go are in an app, and then maybe there's frequencies that you can just load in. You can go, okay, I'd like to have an underlying theta frequency, and it's river, river sounds or whatever, and you just load it in, and then you listen to both. Some of the tracks have have the water sounds or whatever already in them, but some don't. So ultimately, I think to make this really useful and powerful for people, it'd be like, right, it's all in the app. Everything's in there, and you can set your schedule. You can say, yes, every hour I'd like to be reminded to do a breath break, and then it'll just pop up and it'll actually just start playing the breath break for you automatically. And technology can do that kind of stuff. So then it becomes like, okay, all I've got to do is set it up correctly, and then my day is going to run according to that schedule. If I of course listen to what's happening on the phone, I can always mute it if I don't want it, and I'm still in control. I can change the settings. But that's, I think, how you really integrate this into daily life. It's like the technology is really useful as a reminder to pop it up and then go, oh, but it's actually so accessible. All I've got to do is tap, or I can even just set it so that it will automatically play that track. And then all I've got to do is start listening, just happening. Oh, okay, phone's into there. All right. So this is my 3-minute breath break. I do it. And then, it's 3-4 minutes, and then I carry on. I mean, like everyone can actually, no matter how busy you are, you can actually do that. It's just enabling that to happen. With technology is the key. So
overrides the ego. So the ego doesn't say, "Oh, I'm too busy, I can't do it." It just actually happens.
Yeah, it's kind of programmed in, and you just, I suppose you can always resist it and go, no, shut my phone up. I'm not going to do that. You have that power. But if it's happening anyway, you go, all right, so breath break time. Let's just do it. It's happening. Phone's going, phone's doing its thing. All right. So I'll just drop into it for a few minutes, take a little break, and then carry on. Okay. So I've done my 3-4 minutes, and I'll carry on with my work, and in an hour I'll do another 3-4 minutes. And that actually is probably a very effective way of working. If you look at the way that the mind and the brain works. That they're saying, pulse your energy. You can't go always on. You stop every. I think there's something called the Pomodoro method. It says every 25 minutes have a 5-minute break. And there's variations of it. Every 45 minutes have a 10-minute break or 15-minute break. They've done research to go, short, pulse your energy, concentrate, focus, and then you break, and you have a break, and then you go again, and you'll be more effective if you do that, if you pulse it rather than just trying to go all the time. That's that's not a fixed law. I mean, you can actually, with training, you can overcome that. I can work quite happily for 2 hours. And I just go. I'm in flow, and then after 2 hours, maybe I need to just stand up, go to the toilet, make a cup of tea, because the body just starts getting. But if I immerse in that flow state, I can go for hours. Taking breaks at some point is a good idea, whatever that frequency is for you. So imagine an app where you can just set that. You can go, okay, every hour, that works for me, great. 5 minutes every hour, and that's going to make me more effective and more productive and more zoned in, more in flow. So that 5 minutes is not a waste. That 5 minutes is part of the whole thing. You can't fudge this and go, oh, well, I'm always on and no rest, because the rest is an integral part of the whole equation of finding that balance between activity and rest. And most people have got that balance out of whack in this world. The rest and activity are out of whack for them, and they're usually too much activity and too little rest. Even if they're sleeping for 6 or 7 hours a night, maybe that rest is not deep, restful. If you're sleeping badly and it's in your mind is full of stuff, you've got a lot of thoughts going on, you're not really going to get deep rest. So some people will sleep for that, but they don't really feel very rested. So instead of sleep, think of rest. That's quite a useful word. Deep rest. I'm getting really rested, and that doesn't necessarily have to take the amount of time that you thought it should take. The old construct, you have to get 7 hours or 8 hours, otherwise that's not enough, is not necessarily true if you can get deep rest in a couple of hours and your mind is rested, then you can change that equation. Because remember, time, all these constructs, these are constructs of time, space. These are limitations that the ego's imposed. They don't necessarily apply. These are not absolute fixed laws. The only fixed absolute is love, pure formless awareness of perfect love. So if you start going into pure formless awareness of perfect love in your mind, then you start transcending all these limits, time, space. Oh, well, you need so much time to rest. They all kind of drop away because you're just in the eternal now, and you can't really get tired in eternity. You can't get tired. It's not a concept that exists there. You're just at rest all the time, and it's deeply restful and peaceful, and it's a source of all life. So that's why when we drop into delta, that's why we need sleep. Sleep's a mystery to most modern researchers. They still don't really understand why we need to do it, because they're coming at it from a scientific materialist point of view. Going, oh well, does the brain need to rest? Does the body need to rest? What actually needs to rest here? No, what needs to rest is the mind needs to rest. And you can pick that up and you can measure that, with ECG machines in the brain. The mind needs to go into a deep delta state for 2 to 3 hours every 24 hours. That seems to be, how we operate as human beings, and other creatures too. They need to have that rest. That's why they sleep. So the sleep is a shutting down of the brainwave activity and the mind activity to take them back to source. You go back to delta. Delta, there's no conscious thought. It just is. It's a state of pure beingness. And so you go there, and that's because that's your source. That's your true state. If you go there for 2 or 3 hours every day, you can then cope with the illusion. It's like, okay, now the mind can kind of manage this illusion and all the scattered thoughts of the illusion, because you've had the 2 to 3 hours of returning to source. So that's what sleep is really about. So advanced meditators just go, well, actually what you want to do is go into that superconscious state and go back to source, and you can stay aware and awake. So you're not sleeping, you haven't gone unconscious. You're actually in that state, but there's still an awareness. That's what advanced meditators can do. So they get the deep rest, but the beauty of not going to sleep in that state is they're like, oh wow, I'm actually conscious, I'm aware of this. Because the ego's made it, it's a trick, isn't it? It's like, oh, we'll go there, but you're not conscious of it. so you're going into God, into the state every day, but you're not aware of it and conscious of it. So you don't know about it. So so the sleep is like a trick of the ego to, yeah, okay, we're going to get the rest, but you're not actually going to be conscious of of where you are. Whereas the advanced meditators, yogis and mystics, will go, oh no, but let's be conscious when we go there, because then we get the conscious experience of a deep peace, of connecting with source, and it's peaceful, it's blissful, it's joyful, and they get that experience. Whereas if you're unconscious and you're asleep, as we call it, then you don't. But they're still getting the deep rest because their mind's in that state. So they don't. Advanced meditators, like these kinds of people, they don't sleep in the same way as we know sleep. They meditate for long periods, and they're in that state, and that's their rest. They're resting the mind in that state. So then they don't need the sleep. So think of it as rest. I think that's maybe quite a useful way. Do I get deep rest? So I go, yes, I need to rest. I don't necessarily need to sleep for 7 hours, but I need to get good quality rest in every day, and it's also like a top up. Okay, so like now I'll be fine for certainly until this evening, and then maybe I just top myself up and I go, all right, I'll do an hour, and I'll dive into that. I've actually got a frequency called dive, and it's just like dive into that deeper state for an hour. And then I'm good to go for the whole night, because I've had that deep hour, kind of our equivalent of deep sleep, but just diving straight in there rather than having to sleep for 3 or 4 hours to get there. So so it's all I mean, and if you look at it then, and you actually apply this, you can actually become highly effective in this world. The top performers in this world, people who are really, at the top of their game in whatever field of endeavor, business, sports, arts, they use this kind of technology and these techniques to optimize the way they function, so they can function on a higher level than most people, and get more done with less effort, less stressing, straining, striving, and higher quality than most people, because they can go into these states. This is what it comes down to. Can you get into a flow state quickly and easily? And if you can, you'll be at the top of your game. You'll be a top performer. Your performance on the exterior level will mirror the internal state. And so people are starting to realize this, and there's a whole industry in like peak performance, and coaching and training people to go into these altered states where they will perform at their peak. But obviously in things like sport, it's highly valued. But even in business, wherever there's a kind of an obvious gain to that better performance, then it's highly valued, and people pay for it, because like, wow, if I get into that state, then I get the outcome, and that outcome is monetized. But just for most people, it's just, my experience of my life is so much better, so much more in flow, so much more joyful, happy, less exhausting. There's less stressing, straining, and striving, which is the ego, and more letting go and flowing with life, and all of my experiences are just much more pleasant and enjoyable in that state. So yes, that might have some benefits in terms of working longer hours, or being more effective, or doing high quality work. But from a spiritual point of view, what you're doing it because really what you want is the experience. You want the experience of peace and a base state of happiness in all of your daily experiences. So the flow is really where the rubber meets the road in this teaching, because if you've let go of the ego's default mode, and now you're able to stay in this peaceful, restful state while you're in action. You're acting, and so your quality of your action is going to be very different. And then God, pure formless awareness of perfect love, is coming into that action and giving it a different kind of quality, a different energy, and your outcomes will be very different, because you're in a different state of mind. So this is really modern psychology calls it flow and peak performance, peak states. Abraham Maslow called these peak states of awareness, but he recognized that a peak state was really just the same as a mystic state. He held that they were exactly the same. He just changed the language because it wasn't that palatable for most people in the West to go, oh, it's a mystic state, sounds a bit kind of far out and mystic and woo-woo, whereas a peak state sounds like, oh yeah, I want that because that's a peak state, so that's good, I'm at the top of the mountain there type thing. But he said they're exactly the same. A peak state and a mystic state of altered consciousness are really exactly the same. And interestingly, his model, it's so interesting how the ego works, because if you look at Abraham Maslow's model, you're probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the way I learned it was that it was a 5-tier hierarchy. So you have this is the conventional. So there, you have the 5-tier. But what most people missed was that was his like version 1. So there's this hierarchy of needs. You have physiological, safety, love, belonging, esteem, self-actualization. And most people think, well, that's the model. Okay, so the highest peak of it is a letting go state. You're able to problem solve, spontaneity, creativity, morality. But he went beyond this. He went, oh, actually, there's 8 levels. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's see if we can get an expanded hierarchy of needs. See if it finds that. No, there we go. So this was his extended model, which was kind of version 2 that he came up with so I think the last sort of 10 years of his life. And most people don't even know about that, and it's not taught at universities. So why would you ignore his version 2 model? Well, because it starts pointing directly into transcendence. That's why. You see at the top, can you see that? The top of the pyramid there, you've got transcendence. That's it doesn't seem to really help very much. You've got transcendence beyond self-actualization. So physiological safety, belonging, esteem, and then he put in a couple of others: cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, before self-actualization. And at the very top of the pyramid of consciousness is transcendence. So what he's pointing to there is transpersonal psychology. You're going beyond the limited, separated self. And he understood that ultimately these peak states that he talked about were transcendent states. They were mystic states where you were going beyond the separate self into an altered state, into another realm, into another world. And he understood the parallel between his work, which is framed in psychology, and these mystic states that have been going on for thousands of years in different spiritual traditions. And so he maintained the peak experience was really a transcendent experience, was a mystic experience. They were the same, just different language. So you can have a peak experience while you're in action, and that is a deep flow state. So I've had experiences like on the squash court. I think I might have shared that, where like I'm just happening through me, and I'm so zoned in. Now that is a transcendent mystic experience, but it's happening in action. You're actually you're doing something. You're not passive, but you are being done through. And so this is what we're trying to accomplish with this. So although we're acting, ultimately the world's not real. Action is not really required in pure formless awareness. It can be translated into action. It's how God comes into action in this world and does us, and we become the done through by this presence that is beyond us, by this transcendent presence. And then, because of the way it works, you need to go back to source. So you need to drop back into the rest, the deep rest, in order to allow you to now extend this pure formless awareness into your activity in your waking states when you're acting. So that's why the balance between rest and activity is really important. If you never rest and you never go deeply into these states, you won't be able to get into the flow state as easily. So the rest enables the flow, and it's about finding that balance for you. Okay, so what's the optimal balance of rest and flow? Maybe that rest takes the form of 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, good sleep, and then meditation. I'll do an hour or two of meditation, and maybe I'll go for a walk. Okay, so I've got 8 hours of rest in there. It just looks differently from other people's, oh, well, you have to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep and that's your only rest model. See, and also resting frequently in the day. So instead of going, okay, well, I only do 8 hours and then I go for 16 hours without rest, I break it down and I do it in bite-sized chunks. So I do my little breath breaks every few minutes. Every hour I do a few minutes, and maybe I do an hour's meditation in the morning. I do a top-up half an hour in the evening, and I go for a walk. And so then I've integrated the rest into my day in that way, and I've spread it out. And so I can stay in flow. See, you rest and then you go into flow, rest, flow, rest, flow. And that is the pulsing your energy that seems to be the most effective way to stay in flow and to stay in these optimal states. And there's a lot of research that you can find that confirms that. The top performers, they're not always on. You can't go flat out always. You have to rest. So they find a way of integrating the rest into their schedule and in a way that works for them. So they might meditate, they might go for walks, they might just sit and contemplate. Einstein would he'd just be thinking apparently about these ideas, and he'd put a penny in his hand, and when he dropped into a theta state, the penny would drop. That's where the phrase "the penny drops," because the penny drops when you go into the theta state, because you go into a state where your hand is no longer, you're no longer conscious of it, and so your hand drops away, and then the penny drops. And when he did it, because when the penny dropped, it would bring him out of that state, and he'd go, "Oh, what was the insight I got?" Because he'd be having some insight, and then he'd go, "Okay, now I'm consciously aware of the insight, because it brings me the penny dropping, the sound brings him back into a more conscious state." And then he could remember and maybe record what he'd done. And I think that's how he got his insights, like theory of relativity, general theory, special theory. He was tapping in. Like, you don't get that kind of stuff in an ordinary state of consciousness. He would go into visualizations, and he'd say, "Okay, so what if I imagine myself traveling at the speed of light? What would happen?" So that was a creative visualization process that he did. And that's how he came up with the special theory of relativity, because he imagined that. And he could kind of see in his mind's eye that actually, as he's traveling at the speed of light, he saw a clock on Earth, and he saw that the clock was moving more slowly. Yeah, it came to him in like a meditative state. So these kinds of things get revealed, and then he makes sense of it and goes, "Okay, so from that experience, what's a theory then? And let's put this into a theory and put numbers to it." But it actually comes from the mystic state. He was going into a transcendent state of awareness there. So that's honestly where every great science, great art, any great performance that we go, "Wow, there was really something amazing about that." It comes from that state, from a deeper state of awareness where you tapped in to source. So it's pretty powerful stuff. This, if you start using it, you can get insights, and you can operate at a level way above the average, and get results way above average. And that's a huge benefit. Not that you're attached to the results. See, so the whole thing with this is to stay in integrity to spirit. You're going, it's not about the form outcome. What a lot of the personal growth type mindset does is it hijacks this and says, "Okay, it's all about the form outcome." You see, you're doing this because you want the result. So you want to go into flow to get the result because you want to win your tennis tournament, or you want to you want to perform better in your business meeting so you get the contract, or it's all about its outcome. And that actually sabotages it. If you're too outcome oriented, then that will actually it'll certainly limit your effectiveness. And at the mystic level, the truly miraculous level, you're not outcome oriented. It's pure. It's a flow of spirit into everything, and you're doing God's will. Yeshua said, "Not my will, but thy will be done." So everything is not my will. There's this higher state that's coming through me and just using me and expressing through me. And then look at what he did: miracles, raising the dead, healing the sick, walking on water. I mean, what's not possible in that state? So then don't allow the ego to hijack it and say, "Oh, well, it's all about the form," because it's not. The form is a very useful side effect in this world. It's nice. It's a secondary benefit. Yes, actually, I can be very effective, productive in this world, but that's not the real purpose. The real purpose is a transformation of my mind and a connection with my source, and ultimately at one-ment and transcending the world. That's the real purpose. And this is all part of that process. So if you frame it like that, then you can work very effectively in these external domains. You can be in flow and get really good outcomes, miraculous outcomes, but you're not attached to the outcome. You recognize it's all part of the process of your at one-ment, and you are learning through all these experiences that oneness works, that this presence works, and that it's always with you. God goes with you wherever you go. It's never absent in every situation, every activity, every endeavor that you undertake. It's there with you. That state of mind is there. And so the external world is just the learning of that. It's it's training, a training ground. It's a school where you're learning to apply this without exception all the time. So ultimately, you transcend the need for it. If you've learned that, you don't need it anymore. You don't need to come here and learn those lessons if you already learned them. Your mind, by the end of your life, is so rooted in this pure formless awareness. You recognize this is the only truth. This is, this is who you really are. Then you don't need the training ground anymore. You've transcended the need for training. You've graduated. You graduated from the school, the college, and you go, okay, I'm leaving there. You don't stay in the school or university all your life. You graduate and you move on. So in the same way, this is just a school. Graduate, we move on to a higher plane, which if we've done our work well, will be the ultimate, ultimate transcendent reality. Which we call God or heaven. So is that, sorry, I've just gone on for about 40 minutes, but is that helpful?
Very, very helpful. Yeah, very cool.
Just to kind of put it all together and frame it, and you start to see how like an Abraham Maslow and his theory connects in with this. It's actually just part of it. Maslow understood that, but if as happens, his hierarchy of needs has been dumbed down. They don't teach the expanded hierarchy at universities. Why not? You dumbed it down. He was saying actually there is this transcendent state that you can achieve, which points to the transpersonal, but that's threatening for the ego. Transpersonal, or what's beyond my separate self. So we stay within the bounds. The ego can just about accept self-actualization. It's like, oh yeah, I'll be a better self. Okay, cool. I quite like that. But transcend the self. No, that's getting a bit too much. So we cut that out of the model. But it's there, and he's pointing to this transcendent self in his model and saying that's the top of the pyramid. That's ultimately self-actualization is not the top. Ultimately, the top of the pyramid is transcendent. So there's a state above that, and that's where it leads to transpersonal. And so Maslow and people like Ken Wilber and various other pioneers, Sri Aurobindo, they came up with a transpersonal psychology that really is where psychology meets mysticism and spirituality. It's like, because they're actually saying the same thing. Transpersonal psychology is spirituality, is mysticism. You're going transpersonal, you're going beyond the limits of the separate self into another world, into another realm, beyond what you know. So it's there, but again, if you go to a formal university, you probably won't study it because they don't go there because it's too scary. Because we want to keep it within the limits of the separate self, but it's there, and all these great thinkers, they started. If you go high enough in any discipline, you start seeing that it's there. You can't ignore it. There's a transcendent state where you're gonna end up. So in the end, everything leads to God. Like whichever path you can take quantum physics, you can take science, it'll lead you to God. You can take psychology, it'll lead you to God. You can take business, and if you really do it correct, it'll lead you to God. It's because that's where it all ends up. It's the alpha and the omega. Which then, it sort of shows you, look, there's only one reality ultimately. Whichever way I take, there's many ways there, many paths to get there, but in the end, it ends up in the same place. So that must be ultimate reality then. And I guess for me, what's interested me in my life is all these different models, and you start looking at them and you go, oh, okay, but it's really saying the same thing in a different way. Well, that's really interesting. Maslow's saying the same thing. He's got his model of it. Ken Wilber's saying the same thing. He's got his model of it. And the mystics, Yeshua in the Course of Miracles, he's saying the same thing. Buddha saying the same thing. They're all saying the same thing. They're just saying it in different ways. And so don't be fooled by the illusion that it's different. It's the same. It's the same thing, but it's just framed in different ways and a different spiritual traditions and modalities like psychology. They have a different language, so it's framed differently. They have different terms, different language, different diagrams, but it's the same thing. Which then is like, well, it's just one truth. It's a universal truth. And it's everywhere. And I guess what I like doing is just drawing the parallels and saying, look, it's everywhere. See it everywhere. It's not just in A Course in Miracles. It's not just in Buddhism. It's not just in whatever spiritual path. It's in life. It's everywhere, and you can see the pointers, the signposts to the ultimate destination everywhere. So therefore, that destination must be there and it must be true. If it's everywhere, if it's being pointed to by all these different parts. Then you start to go, it must be the ultimate truth, and I accept it. There's not many truths, there's just different ways of looking at the same truth. So ultimately, it's pointing in the same direction. So I guess that's all I've done with the art of letting go. It's like, okay, there's many ways of looking at this, and I'll show you the different ways. So that in the end you go, yeah, but it's all the same. Actually, it's all the same. It's all pointing to the truth, and that's just very, very peaceful and restful. You go, oh, it's all okay. Well, Maslow, I'm not threatened by it. Maslow. Well, that confirms it. Whoever you look at, if it's authentic, it'll confirm the truth for you. Okay, so any comments, questions about that? It's a little spontaneous teaching there. Shall we have a little look at today's quote and then do some reading on that, and then we'll go into the lesson?
I'm only here until 2:00. I've got a 2:00 client today.
All right.
Okay.
So let's read this, and then the lesson is just very short. We'll do a meditation, and then it should be done.
Okay. We're doing the quote at the top?
Yeah.
Though we are incomplete, God loves us completely. Though we are imperfect, he loves us perfectly. Though we may feel lost and without compass, God's love encompasses us completely. He loves every one of us, even those who are flawed, rejected, awkward, sorrowful, or broken.
Yeah, so framed, that was a German aviator and religious leader speaking of it, pointing us to this divine unconditional love. I think it's always there. And even those that you see, the truth is you're not really flawed, rejected, awkward, sorrowful, or broken. It seems to be that way, but you're not really. Your truth is that you are pure formless awareness of perfect love, and you are absolutely perfect. It's just we've got into the illusion that we're flawed, rejected, awkward, sorrowful, or broken, or whatever. And this divine love is what heals it. It reminds us of what we truly are. Because all these imperfections aren't real. They're not really there. They're an illusion, which is really the key insight of the Course. If it isn't real, then you can't make it real. It's not like God is healing what's real. You're simply seeing it and recognizing that it's unreal, so it's not there. And so that removes it from your awareness. And if it's not in your awareness, it has no reality, because you're making a reality all the time. There's no reality in the absence of observation, as the quantum physicists say. So you're making it up all the time. So don't perceive the unreal, and you'll be back in truth. Okay. So in truth, you want to read that?
In truth, you are the pure formless awareness of perfect unconditional love without opposite, and that can be called God. And as one of today's workbook lessons for review states, there is no love but God's.
Yeah, it's a powerful statement. So there is nothing else. There's no other love. We think love is many faceted again. Well, there's a kind of love for this and a kind of love for that. But there's only one love. It's one state of mind that underlies everything. Okay, you want to carry on?
Why is this? Because divine love is pure formless awareness before the universe of time and space came into seeming existence. So it is primordial reality and the timeless essence or ground of being, as it's been called by some philosophers, that underlies the physical universe of time and space. I've not heard of ground of being before.
Yeah, it's a guy called Paul Tillich came up with it. He was there you go, Christian existentialist philosopher, Lutheran Protestant theologian, most influential theologians of the 20th century. And he wrote a book, and he coined the phrase ground of being, which is just a description of this, base reality, ground of being. It's there's something that underlies all existence, and he just called it the ground of being. It can be called that. God is the ground of being. There we go. Ontological view of God as being itself, the ground of being, and the power of being, one in which God is beyond essence and existence. Yeah, so he's critical of conceptions of God as a being, i.e., the highest being, as well as pantheistic conceptions of God as universal essence. So he's saying it's the beingness. When we translate creation as beingness, then this is what it means. It's just beingness beyond conception, beyond what you can frame. So yeah, might be interesting, reading. So there's all these lines. This is philosophy, theology, philosophy, ontology, talking about God as and all these people dedicated their lives to it, and you can actually amazing. You just pull it up, and there you go. Okay, well, let's check out what Paul Tillich had to say on it. You go, okay, well, that's an interesting perspective, and I can take his whole life's work and I can just synthesize it and download it in a few minutes. And I go, oh, okay, that's what he's saying. Very interesting. How does that work with with what I know? Well, ground of being. Yeah, that makes sense, because it's one. It's nothing separate. It's just the beingness that is. It's the isness that is, and that's what he's trying to describe with the term, the ground of being. It underlies the physical universe of time and space. So they understood that this is like the base reality from which everything springs. Everything on the surface level actually is underpinned. What underlies it is this ground of being, without which it could have no existence. So the illusion of this world could have no existence if there were no ground of being, because the ground of being preceded it. There had to be a split from the ground of being in order to miscreate a physical universe. So that ground of being must still be there. Okay. So next one, divine love's meaning.
Divine love's meaning cannot be derived from an analysis of human existence. Its meaning comes from beyond the dilemma of human existence, expressed poetically by Shakespeare's character Hamlet in the play of the same name. To be or not to be, that is the question, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles by opposing in them.
Yeah, so Shakespeare framed the question like, well, to be or not to be, should I be human or not? Should I just surrender to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, just accept that that's my lot, or take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them? Interesting. Take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. So what is he saying there, really? Opposing by saying, look, no, this isn't true. Against the sea of troubles, by opposing end them, and he's pointing there to a transcendent state of mind. And interesting, he says, by opposing in them. So kind of what we got to do, the Course in Miracles, is we have to oppose the ego's thought system. We can't believe in it and transcend the sea of troubles. We must oppose it, and that's in our belief. We say, no, these beliefs are not true. So by opposing in them, and this is what he's pointing us to, is another way. Instead of just saying, well, my lot is to suffer as human, and that's just how it is, we say, no, I can actually do something about it. And I cannot be human. To be or not to be, that is the question. So this is the seeming dilemma as human existence itself. Do I stay human and suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune as human, rooted on the timeline of consciousness? Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Well, look at what, these are the things that seem to happen in a human life, often not very good. Or take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing in them, Well, that's kind of what we're doing with the Course in Miracles, isn't it? You just phrase it as like, take arms. Perhaps, that sounds like you're fighting against something, but you're really saying, no, I'm not going to accept the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and the sea of troubles any longer. I'm going to end them, and I'm going to not be human. To be human or not to be human. That's the seeming dilemma, is human existence itself. How are you, John?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Joel. Hi, Sally.
Welcome.
Hi.
So, John, if you can read the next paragraph, if we ask ourselves the question.
If we ask ourselves the question, is human life real and meaningful? From within a thought system that seeks to prove that it is, we are bound to receive the answer that we set out to find. But does this answer really satisfy us, or will there always be some lingering doubt we haven't been totally honest in asking the right questions until we actually ask these questions?
Yeah?
Yep.
So, within the construct of the ego, you ask, is human life real and meaningful? With the assumption that it is, then you're bound to find the answer that you want to find, aren't you? You have to really question and say, but actually, maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. So this comes back to your favorite passage. I think you should read this one. Do you remember this particular section?
I do, yeah.
I've referred to it a few times.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting you popped in exactly at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I've just been reading it before I kind of logged in as well.
Okay, so have a read of that.
The ego will demand many answers that this course does not give. It does not recognize as questions the mere form of a question to which an answer is impossible. The ego may ask, how did the impossible occur? To what did the impossible happen? And may ask this in many forms, yet there is no answer, only an experience. Seek only this and do not let theology delay you.
Just say going beyond the questioning mind, well, what did this happen to? How did the separation happen? That question implies that it did happen. You see the assumption behind the question. So in the same way, we may ask whether another human being loves us. But this is a question asked from an extremely limited human perspective, framed in the parenthesis between birth and death that we call a human lifetime. So this is the parenthesis. A parenthesis in eternity, I think Joel Goldsmith called it. Between birth and death, that's a human lifetime, a little window, like, there we go, 70, 80 years, little parenthesis, over. So if we frame the question within that parenthesis, then we've got a very limited viewpoint, haven't we? We need to go beyond the parenthesis, beyond the limits of the construct of human life to get a true perspective on it. So beyond time, beyond birth and death, which is what the mystics do. They go beyond it in their mind. They say there's actually this transcendent awareness there. That really makes the idea of a single person loving another person, irrelevant. See, it's like it becomes within the parenthesis of human life that seems to be meaningful. But if you go beyond that to eternity, it's not meaningful. How can one person love another person when there are no people? There is there are no separate selves. So it just starts collapsing the whole construct, the parenthesis, and everything within it. The slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, all the experiences of human life go with it. So no, these things are always subject to the fundamental law of time, which is that all things must end. Okay? So Sally, these relationships with other human beings.
These relationships with other human beings, Jesus calls special relationships in the Course in Miracles. because they assume that both you and the other person are ontologically real, and then try to find the answer to this question within the ego's framework of reality that the assumption miscreates.
So you see what we try and do? We try and find the answer to the question within this narrow framework, and the special relationship is part of the framework. And so then we seek the special relationship to confirm to ourselves that it's real. That yes, I am a separate self, and the parenthesis in eternity is actually true, and eternity is not true. And you know, that's why we're seeking the special relationship. It's why at the highest level of spirituality, the idea of a special relationship is meaningless. It's like, because there's not me and another self. There's no individual selves here. There's just one of us, and you see that. So how can I have a special relationship with someone who doesn't even exist, and I don't exist? You merge into the oneness. Okay. Next one, John, by asking assumptive questions.
By asking assumptive questions that dictate a certain answer, our egos, which are nothing more than our idea of being a separate self, seek to justify and perpetuate their existence in our minds.
Yeah, you see how that happens?
Yeah. Yes.
I keep asking questions based on my limited concept of being a separate self, and the question implies that I'm a separate self. It's an assumptive question. How did the impossible happen? It's an assumptive question. It assumes that the impossible did happen. So a far better approach would be to question the assumptions themselves. In the previous example, instead of asking whether another person really loves us, ask yourself if there really is another person that's separate from you in the first place. Because that just, then the question becomes meaningless. If there's no separate person, then asking whether a separate person loves you as a separate person is a meaningless question, if there's really no separate people, you see. So it just collapses the assumption within which these questions happen, which is part of undoing the ego, breaking down or undoing this assumption that we are actually human, and we have this life from birth to death, and you know, all these things are real that we experience on this timeline. It's breaking down the whole time-space construct and saying, well, actually, none of it's true. So, John, if you want to read that last paragraph, this line of questioning.
This line of questioning will ultimately take you beyond the subject-object dualistic perception that characterizes this world into acceptance that there is, in truth, only one reality, love of God, presence or ground of being, use whichever term you prefer, in which we are all united with every seeming other person and living creature, seemingly living in this physical universe.
So there's only one reality. You go beyond, you know, I, subject, perceive, separate object. That's dualistic. In the ground of being, in this true awareness, there's one awareness. You recognize it's one presence, it's one awareness. It's my awareness, it's everyone's awareness. And I merge into that awareness. It's pure formless awareness of perfect love, and there's nothing else. And that's the transcendent state that, you know, Maslow and all these people, all these theologians, philosophers, Paul Tillich called it the ground of being. They're all pointing to that. It's like, yeah, there's another reality. That's the foundation of what we call a perennial philosophy. Perennial philosophy is in every great spiritual teaching and philosophy, that it's really just saying that there's another reality. There's a transcendent reality. There's another reality. And you know, our task here is to find it, ultimately transcend this reality and go into another one. That's the perennial philosophy.
I think that paragraph actually is particularly useful when trying to explain to other people that the world is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I mean, when I struggle to explain the course to other people, I kind of hit this barrier of how do I explain that the world is an illusion and what we are creating is an illusion, an image in our own minds? And I think to kind of get back, to start from this oneness place is meaningful to other people, whereas arguing that that what we see is an illusion is very, very difficult.
Yeah, and if you have this as a reference point, explain it and say, well, there's just perfect oneness. It's one awareness, and then we split. There was an idea of separation which came into that awareness, and that idea has now been projected out and seemingly forms the basis of another reality, which we've got caught up in. We think we're in that reality. We think we're bodies and we think we're separate selves, and it's just an idea. That's all. It's just an idea. So coming from the place of oneness, then maybe the explanation of the illusion makes more sense. Like, well, if you ask people logically, well, what came before? If you believe in science, and a lot of people know about the Big Bang theory, the universe all came into being in one instant. Okay, well, what preceded that? What pre-existed the Big Bang? What was there that allowed the Big Bang to happen? Well, science can't answer that question. They have no idea. Well, that's so then. Well, you go to spirituality and philosophy, and you say, well, there's something there. It's a presence, ground of being, pure formless awareness, God, love, whatever you want to call that pre-existed the universe of time and space. So and maybe it's still there. It hasn't really gone away. It's just been covered over. We now have another seeming reality going on that's like covered over that underlying ground of being. So you have this, two-tiered reality where we seem to be caught in the one, but actually underlying it is the deeper reality. And you could say to them, but this is the perennial philosophy. Go look at every philosophy, every spiritual teaching. They're pointing to a deeper or higher, whichever term you want to use, transcendent reality. So I'm not just making this up. This is every great thinker, every great philosopher, every great spiritual teacher, master has really said the same thing. This isn't it. This isn't the only reality. There's another one that's hidden from you. It's covered over. So hence the veil of illusion. It's a covering. This world is the covering over that deeper reality. And our task is to uncover that, to remove the veil so that we can access that reality directly. We can experience it directly, ultimately merge with it. And in the end, that becomes our only reality. And the covering, the veil's simply removed and let go of. And so, that's why it's illusion. If it can be let go of and undone, it was never really real. It's not permanent reality. It's temporary. So using this diagram could help you to explain it, be open to it. Just the idea that we had a transcendent reality before. Ask, well, what happened before the Big Bang? If someone's into science, say, well, do you understand, the big, yeah, I understand that. Okay, well, what happened before that? What pre-existed that? And science can't answer. Quote unquote, I was listening to a quantum physicist. I put it in one of my posts a few weeks ago. And he says, at time zero, we have no idea what happened. I mean, that's a stunning admission. We have no idea. Okay, so you actually have no idea about this at all. Your entire science is based on post-separation. So your entire science is based on the post-separation self concept. Now trying to understand what it's made. That's what all the what we call science is about. How did this happen? But pre-existing that, there's something that transcends it as well. Beyond it, there's a deeper existence, and the only way you're going to understand that is through exploration of your own mind. You're not going to find that out there. It isn't out there. It's in your mind. So the mystics and masters and yogis, they can tell us about that state because they've been there. But scientists can't because they don't go there. They stay in this domain. Okay, so any questions on that little teaching?
So, so it just seems strange to me how we create birds and plants and trees. You know, that's separate to the. Well, there's nothing separate, is there? But it feels like the ego illusion of, you know, he's doing that to me and he's doing that. I can completely understand that's an illusion. And then it seems to me that things like birds and trees and animals are kind of in the middle of that. So they're not like this really restrictive dark energy that can be created. They're kind of nearer to the formless awareness, aren't they?
Yeah, in their mind, because they don't have such a dense self-concept as humans do. You know, humans, like, we're almost the apex of the ego, because we really believe that we are separate. I think animals, plants, they don't have such a strong belief in their separation. But they're still there, you know, they still need to survive, they need to eat other things to survive. So it's kind of the whole, you know, nature, we call nature, this world, is egoic, because it's based on one or the other. It's based on, oh, well, in order for me to survive, I've got to eat something else. That's the law of nature, whether that's a plant or an animal. So it's built into the construct of the universe, you know, at a deep level. And just the idea that you need separate forms. I mean, why do all these forms exist? What's the purpose of them? You know, no one can really give us a good answer. Oh, well, it just, you know, it's what the universe wants to do. Okay, well, what's the universe? Again, it's belief in separation wants to do it. The belief in separation values many different forms, because it confirms that it's separate, confirms fragmentation and separation are real. So then we've created a universe of multiplicity of forms, seemingly separate forms, but it's all a projection of a false idea. Yes, I can be separate from source. I can be separate from pure formless awareness. So, you know, all of these things, they might be closer to beingness. Certainly, I mean, you go into nature and John, you were walking last week, weren't you? You were like, yeah, I was just really, you know, tapped in, and there's less mind energy. There's less identification with form. Because a tree or you know, grass or plants, they don't have a self-concept in the same way we do. The tree's not defining itself as, well, I'm a tree and you're an opposing tree, and it doesn't sort of work that way. But they still have a form. There's still form there. So ultimately, what we're pointing to is beyond all form. So the trees and nature can be a very useful pointer beyond form, but don't get stuck there. That's not the ultimate truth, because then you start going into nature worship and pantheism and all that. You know, so seeing multiple different spirits in nature. You know, those belief systems exist, but underlying all of it, you start to recognize that there is one transcendent awareness, and I am that awareness. You know, so what the very essence of that tree, that plant, that animal is the same essence in me. It's one awareness, and now I'm transcending the illusion of separate separate self-concept projected out, which is the physical universe. I'm going beyond that into oneness, and I'm using the illusion for what it's really for, which is correcting my mind and seeing beyond the veil. And so, you know, it can be helpful to go into nature, but it's not absolutely required. You can see it everywhere. You can see it in inanimate objects, underlying the wall, underlying the you know, the cup. And this is why Yeshua starts off the course with this kind of mind training. Well, it's in the cup, it's in the wall, it's everywhere. It's the underlying background of being. You don't need to be in nature to see it. It's everywhere. And so that's our task, is just to see it everywhere. Look beyond the illusion and see that oneness is everywhere. This pure formless awareness is everywhere. And it's in our mind. I see it in the world because I see it in my mind. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Lesson 30, I think. Pure formless awareness is in everything I see, underlies everything I see because it's in my mind, because it is my mind. That awareness is my mind. It's my true state. So how can I not see it? If I'm in that true state, I must see it everywhere. I must perceive it everywhere. And so he's training us to see it everywhere, beyond, and look beyond the illusion of separation to the truth of unity that's always there in every situation. Okay, so that, I can't even remember what the question was. So I hope I answered it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's have a look. You've got to go in 5 minutes. Let's have a look at the lesson quickly. So Sally, if you want to read the key idea for us.
My mind holds only what I think with God, pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Okay, how's that sitting with you today? It's the same as yesterday, but any new insights on it?
No, it's getting, I'm more comfortable with it. Yeah, it's embedding gradually.
Okay, good. And then related to that, John, if you read the next one.
There is no love but God's, pure formless awareness of perfect love.
So there is no love but this love. Again, quite a profound statement. We think in the original lesson, if I remember Jesus's words, he was saying, well, you think there's a kind of love for this and a kind of love for this, a way of loving this person, another way of loving that person. This is special love. But he says, actually, there's no love but God's. There's only one way. There's only one love. Because there's one awareness. It's transcendent, divine love, pure formless awareness of perfect love, we call it, is the one love, the one state, the one awareness that underlies it all. And he's saying that's the only truth. Everything else is false. So therefore, just let it go. The world I see holds nothing that I want. So the world is a projection of another idea. The world's a projection of an idea of, oh, there actually is another love. There's another way to love. And the ego makes up its own version of love, which is called special love, and starts engaging and trying to satisfy itself through that. And you say, but there's no other love. There's only this awareness, one love, one state of mind, one consciousness. That's it. So the world I see, which is a projection of the idea that there's something, another kind of love, must be an illusion, and it holds nothing that I want because it's all false. And it will disappoint me. I will always feel lacking because I'm actually denying, by accepting special love, I'm denying divine love. And I'm denying this when I accept that I, a separate self, love another separate self, another form. That conception denies pure formless awareness, doesn't it? So do you see how special love and divine love contradict each other? You can't really have both. They are part of two opposing thought systems. So therefore, the answer is, well, let go of the one and accept the other. To fully accept divine love, you must let go of the world. And hence, the world I see holds nothing that I want. Okay. So, comments, questions, thoughts on those key ideas?
No, I've got to go now, so I'll leave you two to it. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Sally. Okay. So, John, we could do a meditation now if you like.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we can go into the text.
Yeah.
All right. So just making yourself comfortable. Sitting your feet shoulder width apart. Back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And clench the sphincter muscle, you lock the energy in. And draw the energy up the spine to your heart center. So put one hand on your heart, connect with your heart space. Draw the energy all the way up with the breath into the crown of your head. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. And just deeply relax. Scan your mind, noticing any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations related to these in the body. Breathing in, topping yourself up with hair. And breath is a proxy for space. It's like spacious awareness, allowing emptiness and spaciousness to arise in your mind with the breath. And you just rest in this deeper presence of love. Rest in God. If you notice anything that's out of accord with that, any kind of negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations in the body, just breathe into those. Remind yourself that my mind holds only what I think with God. Mind holds only what I think with pure formless awareness of perfect love. So I breathe in this essence, this true awareness, true reality into my mind, into pour every cell, every muscle of my body, to any areas of darkness and tension and pain in your body, into your mind. And you rest in the pure formless awareness of perfect love. And you're willing to just let go of everything else. So my mind holds only what I think with God. The pure formless awareness of perfect love implies that you can let go of all else. Nothing else really exists. So say to yourself as you exhale, there is no love but God's. There's no love but pure formless awareness of perfect loves. There's no other kind of love. So just blowing it all away. So all of these other ideas, other states of awareness, of invention, of the ego mind, seem to cover over the true awareness, which is perfect love. So blow them away like clouds, just leaving you. Cannot obscure the blue sky of your pure formless awareness, or the light of your source that shines through it, streaming into your awareness, enlightening your mind. So just let that happen. Surrender into this pure formless awareness of perfect love now. There's really nowhere else to go, and there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still. Observe the breath flowing into and out of your nostrils. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just drop into this deeper awareness. The love of God, it's been called the ground of being. So our mind holds only what I think with God, with pure formless awareness of perfect love. So I drop into that state. And so just rest in this state for a few minutes. So Lucy, we're just in a meditation, just drop into close your eyes, drop into a calm, quiet state. There's nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, observe the breath flowing in and out through your nostrils. And enter into this deep state of awareness. This is the pure, formless awareness of perfect love. Rising in your mind right now. In the now, which is the only time it can be experienced. And you merge your mind with it. This awareness is your awareness. It is you, you're it. This is the mystical merging of the Father and the Son. The source, pure formless awareness, itself and your experience, coming into your experience as your experience. So just surrender to that. You don't need to think about it happening. There's no concepts, no self-concepts, no intellectual concepts, theological concepts, philosophical concepts. Just let it all go. Drop into the pure experience of the love of God, pure, formless awareness of perfect love. The next few minutes of deep contemplative silence. So if any thoughts arise, just observe them casually. So imagine they're just like clouds drifting by in your awareness. There's really no substance to them. You can just observe them, just blow them away. It's the breeze of your breath to the nothingness they really are. They cannot obscure the pure formless awareness, perfect love, which is the blue sky of your true awareness, the light of your source that shines through it. So just let that awareness completely encompass you. Sink into it. Do not resist it in any way, shape, or form. Just surrender to it. Abandon yourself to it. For the next couple of minutes of deep contemplative silence. So just gently coming back from this deep state of awareness, pure formless awareness, perfect love, to an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how stomach rises, and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, surrendered state. Observe the mind, notice any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations related, and if there's anything that's not of pure formless awareness, then recognize it as such and just let it go with the breath. Exhale, releasing it into the nothingness that it really is. Notice the air flowing out. Your mouth, chest, and the stomach suck back in. Energy raised up into the crown of your head, subsides back down into the stomach, the groin. And just resting there at the bottom of the exhale for a few moments. Count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. Tasting, maybe smelling, notice what you're hearing. All these sense perceptions come back into awareness, but you're perceiving them from this deeper state of pure formless awareness. Pure formless awareness of perfect love is with you always, underlies all of your sense perceptions. So just observe without judgment, without interpretation, and this pure formless awareness is there. You recognize it as foundational awareness, the ground of being, without which you would have no other awareness. And so on the count of 3, as you open your eyes, just look around for a minute or so. Just looking at the various familiar objects in the room around you from this state of pure formless awareness. And really you see everything the same. You see it with the same awareness. So there's no separation in your mind, whether you look on a wall or a body or a floor or organic, something apparently living, something that's inorganic. Doesn't matter, it's one awareness. Notice how peaceful, restful that awareness is. And just stay rooted. The intention to stay rooted in that awareness for the rest of the session and the rest of the afternoon, to help you do that practice today's lesson well. So send you a breath break to do that 5 minutes, or instructions to help you to do it in under a minute. So ideally every hour, just check in with that, even if it's only for 30 seconds or a minute, just to reconnect with this deeper presence that hopefully you've connected with very deeply in the last 25 minutes or so. So that that brings us to the end of the meditation. So say hello to Lucy. Hi Lucy, welcome.
Hi, Jono. Thank you for that meditation. That was brilliant. And I really appreciate you sending the material yesterday as well. I was looking through it this morning. Yeah, really helpful.
Well, maybe we can have a quick look at that. The rest of the because we've got a short section of the text today. It's only 6 paragraphs, so we can have a look at the rest of it, of what we did yesterday. If you like. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like a nice day in Findhorn.
It's lovely. It's sunny, and then it's rainy, and then it's sunny, and then it's rainy. It's great.
It's reasonably warm. Excellent. So, John, how's that sound? So we just have a look at
it's good.
Yesterday's tail end of yesterday's, and then we can go into the today's. It's only 6 paragraphs, which is relatively short. So, okay. So I'll just bring that up. So let me share my screen. Okay, so where are we? There we are. So this is the this is yesterday's, which was called the call for faith. I've just saved it as something else, but we'll change it. It's how it was yesterday. So yeah. So Lucy, we ended up our last point of departure was we were talking about the universe will serve it gladly. As it serves the universe, but do not interfere. And we were debating whether we should have this translation. So maybe just read. Do you want to read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Read the translated version of The Goal of Illusion from the top there.
Okay. The goal of illusion is as closely tied to faithlessness as faith to truth. If you lack faith in anyone to fulfill and perfectly his part in any situation dedicated in advance to truth, your dedication is divided. And so you have been faithless to your companion and used your faithlessness against him. No relationship is wholly aware unless its pure formless awareness goes with it everywhere. Because pure formless awareness and faith go hand in hand. Faith must go everywhere and pure formless awareness, with pure formless awareness. The goal's reality will call forth and accomplish every miracle needed for its fulfillment.
Just seeing. Maybe we can change miracle to correction. Every correction.
The goal's reality will call forth and accomplish every correction needed for its fulfillment. Everything, no matter how small or enormous, weak or compelling, will be gently used to fulfill his goal. The universe of form will serve it gladly, as it serves the true universe, but do not interfere.
So the original there was the universe will serve it gladly as it serves the universe. And then we departed at that point, but the next paragraph kind of gives some clarity on it because he talks about the universe.
Yeah.
Again, universe beyond the stars. So I just wanted to give, because John, I think you missed that as well. You'd signed off at that time. So we were just going, well, what does he mean by universe here? What's the translation? Does he mean physical universe? Does he mean a universe beyond? The way I've translated it before is that it's the universe. Universe is actually referring to the true universe, another reality, realm of heaven, kingdom of heaven, state of pure formless awareness, of perfect love. And Lucy was kind of saying, no, well, I think it's good to keep it ambiguous and up to the interpretation of the reader. But then he clarifies it in the next one. So if we read further, you see what he says in the next one. So maybe Lucy, read that as well. The power set in you.
The power set in you is whom the remembrance of perfect love's goal has been established. Oops, hang on a minute. Can I just say that again? I didn't understand it. The power set in you in whom the remembrance of perfect love's goal has been established is so far beyond your little conception of the infinite that you have no idea how great the strength that goes with you is. And you can use this strength in perfect safety, yet for all its might, so great it reaches past the stars and to the true universe that lies beyond them. Your little faithlessness can make it useless if you want to use the faithlessness instead.
Yeah. So what he's referring to here is the original was the universe. He just used the term universe. So great reaches past the stars and to the universe that lies beyond them. So there he's clearly pointing to a transcendent reality, which he's then using as universe, which is confusing because the universe that lies beyond, that should be capitalized then, really. Well, a capital universe, not small universe, because it's referring to this, ultimate reality. So in the translation, I've just used true universe, and universe with a capital U. So it's like, okay, well, this is the the other reality that he's talking about. It's another term for that, another phrase for pointing to it, that lies beyond the stars. So beyond this world. So then if we look at that, what he said here, and go back to this universe of form, will serve it gladly as it serves the true universe. I think he does mean, as it serves the universe. He's actually meaning the true universe, not the physical universe here. But maybe, we can interpret it as, okay, well, there's, as he often does in a sentence, it's one reality and then phase shifting into another reality. The first clause is, the physical universe will serve it gladly as it serves the universe. You could interpret it that way, because the underlying the seeming physical universe is the true universe. So then you've got both senses of it, but it's just made explicit so that it's clear for people, so they don't get confused. Universe of form. Oh, okay. So there's a universe of form, small u, will serve it gladly as it serves the true universe, and then he defines what the true universe is in the next one. So are you happy with that?
Yeah.
I think that brings a greater understanding, clarity of what he means by universe, and that there's there's two ways of interpreting it: a physical universe, which is what most people think of, because that's what science has used. We're in the modern scientific materialist paradigm. The universe has been used for the last few decades to describe the cosmos. Before that, we didn't even know there was a universe. We had no idea that there was a vast universe out there. So it's relatively modern usage. But he's using universe in the other sense of another reality. True universe lies beyond them. Okay, so any thoughts on number 7?
No, not really. Very long sentence at the beginning. I kind of was quite baffled by that first sentence. The power set in you, in whom the remembrance of perfect love's goal has been established, is so far beyond your little conception of the infinite that you have no idea how great the strength that goes with you is. Yeah, that's okay. It's just quite long when I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. You just kind of don't know the brilliance and the magnitude of what is available, what is here right now, when we live in that small, contracted place, the small universe.
Yeah, so the universe of time and space is a projection of a little self-concept.
Mm-hmm.
The small self now projects itself into this seeming external world, and it's a mirror of that littleness, the little conception of yourself. So the entire universe, physical universe, is a projection of your self-concept.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in that universe is designed to mirror to you the self-concept that you believed in, to create it, to miscreate it. So that's why I'm saying don't, value anything in this world, because if you value it, you're making the self-concept that created it real.
Yeah.
You must look beyond it to find the magnitude, magnificence that you really are, beyond the universe of time and space, beyond the stars, as he points out, as he phrases it.
Yeah, that's a lovely term of phrase, beyond the stars.
No.
So
Really, what he's saying, it's beyond, that's his way of pointing to the whole physical universe and saying beyond that, you think of that as infinite, this enormous expanse of time in the universe. I mean, we are just a tiny blip. Our galaxy is one of billions, they say. A tiny little blip in time. So there's all these stars, but beyond all of this is another transcendent reality. He's very clearly pointing to that, which is the true universe. And then that should be capitalized to refer to be consistent. So that we know capitals always refer to the other reality. So some of these are anomalies in the course. Like, why not use then capital U here instead of small u?
Yeah,
I think that was. It's a big work, isn't it? You can imagine. I can imagine Ken Wapnick and Helen Schuckman sitting after like a whole afternoon of this, going through this. It's like, okay, we just kind of missed that one. Capital, small. It's like it all starts to, because they must have done a lot of work on this. I mean, we're doing probably similar to what they did. Just like, okay, let's look at this line by line and edit it, and so it's easy to miss stuff. So I think the capitalization, some of it got missed. So that's why the reason why we're translating it. Okay. So do you want to give a little summary of that, and let's move on to number 8. What's he saying in that paragraph, essentially?
Well, what he's saying is that your tiny concept of yourself is really minuscule and does not has that tiny, that sort of small self doesn't have any access to the infinite, the greatness and the infinite. But if you remember, if you put yourself in the position, if you set your compass to the remembrance of perfect love, your goal, then you can use this. You can use this. This is, he calls it a strength. Use this strength to reach beyond the beyond, beyond the physical, beyond the conceptual and the physical. And I like the word faith. I've been really touched by this word faith that's been appearing. Yeah, your faithlessness, really, just not in aligning with remembrance of perfect love's goal, is a faithlessness. Yeah. It puts everything in context.
Yeah, it's nice. So he does this. He uses different terms because it's like, okay, well that one might work for you. Faithlessness and faith might be a good way to realize it. I think there's something about faith that we go, yes, I do want to have faith to something true and beautiful and pure, and I don't want to be faithless to that.
Yeah.
So it's a it's a call to go, yeah, actually I want to have faith in what is true, and not be faithless, because faithless doesn't sound great, does it? I'm faithless.
No, it doesn't.
It's really,
I remember,
really not a good description of the ego at all.
Yeah, I remember when I joined the course and we were talking about faith, and I was saying, you know, my sister had said to my dad, all you need is faith, you know, and he's this scientist. And he just is so baffled by that. What do you mean faith? What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
But this lays it out really well, this chapter. Yeah.
It's faith in another reality. It's faith that there's something beyond the
It's
physical.
faith in another reality.
That's what it is.
Yes, totally.
And scientists, a scientific materialist, is obviously going to struggle with that, because their concept is only the material is real.
Oh yeah, what a sad thing, huh?
So of course you're going to struggle with that, because you're asking to have faith in something they've denied.
Yeah,
that doesn't even exist in their concept.
denied.
So that's why he's faith in what?
Yeah.
Because in his world, if you look at the flatland worldview, let's just dive back into the integral model. In flatland, the scientific materialists have said only the exterior is real. They've denied that the interior even exists.
Yeah.
So have faith in what? It doesn't even exist for them. How can you have faith in what doesn't exist?
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
And so, but that's faithless, because you've just denied it, and
Totally.
and then said it's not there, but actually that's because you don't want to see it. You don't want it anymore. This is all part of your denial of it.
You can see where the argument.
You're a separate self.
It's just an argument that will never go anywhere, isn't it? That argument of between scientific materialism and this spiritual. I don't know. Would you call it a spiritual? This pure formless awareness. There's no meeting place.
Well, there is. If you look at quantum mechanics, you can say, okay, let's approach it from there. If you're a scientific materialist, then quantum has been around for 100 years. It's on the cutting edge of science. And there's all various other theories like superstring theory and da da da. So I get all that. Well, what is it saying? What is quantum saying, really? It's saying there is no reality in the absence of observation. Wow. Okay. So there's no. What it's saying really is this objective reality that you so believe in is not really even there.
Yeah.
It's not independent of the observer. Oh, okay. So what it's really saying is that there is a perceiver. There is an internal dimension to consciousness that comes through quantum, now comes into existence. So they have to then acknowledge, look, there is actually an interior domain. That's what quantum is saying. Well, you can misinterpret it and say it's not saying that, but it is saying that. So that could be your point of access, to say, well, really, what is it saying? That we are not independent of the external world. There's no like external world and us, and this is some kind of objective reality. The Newtonian paradigm has been shattered. It doesn't exist anymore. All the cutting edge scientists are going, oh, well, that's old news. The cutting edge stuff is quantum, and how does consciousness interact with the seeming material world? That's where scientists, the cutting edge, leading edge scientists are going. So they're starting to have to acknowledge the reality of an interior domain of consciousness, which previously was excluded. The Newtonian paradigm didn't make allowance for that. So they have to, if they're really open, they will go, well, actually, my science is actually pointing me there, pointing me to where you're coming from as a so-called, spiritual woo-woo person. They're really saying the same thing. So there is a meeting point, but they have to be willing to abandon, or at least question, the scientific materialist paradigm that only the exterior domains are real. Because if they want to hold to that as a fixed dogma, and this is what Rupert Sheldrake is saying, science is dogmatically holding to that when there's huge amount of evidence that that's just not true. That's not the case. That's not how it all works. There are these interior domains of consciousness, and you have to bring them into your models of reality. Otherwise, it's a very limited conception of reality that's not actually explaining the truth. So he's criticizing scientists for saying, well, they've excluded consciousness from their models. even though quantum mechanics is pointing to that pretty directly, which is extraordinary. So then he's saying, well, that's not good science. That's just a dogma. That's just another fixed belief system. That's not true. So that becomes another conceptual prison, in the same way that religions are a conceptual prison. He's saying science has now become a religion rather than free, open inquiry, which is what it was meant to be to start with. The scientific revolution 500 years ago was, well, we're not bound by the dogmas of the church, of religion. We can actually do some free inquiry, and we can go beyond those, and we can observe for ourselves and work out, how this so-called universe works, and we're not bound by dogma. But they've got bound over 500 years into another dogma, which isn't really serving them or anyone. Certainly not serving the world. We need to break out of the dogma that only the exterior, world is real. All the great scientists like Newton and Einstein, they're aware that this is just the surface. Newton's quote is classic. It seems to me I've just been like a little boy playing on the sands with seashells and pebbles when the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. He had this mystic element. He was an alchemist, and he was like, yeah, I'm just really scratching the surface here. My entire life's work he dismissed with that one sentence. So that's also, you could quote that to a Newtonian physicist and say, well, like, the guy who actually came up with your physics was really dismissing it. At the end of his life, he said, it seems to me I've just really been fiddling around and not actually accessing anything that's true. So there is a way to engage in the conversation, but if they're dogmatically fixated on the scientific materialist paradigm that only the exterior domains of reality are real, then you can't really have a conversation, because they're not open to going anywhere else. It's like a wall that you hit. So yeah, you won't penetrate. Just in the same way as a fundamental religious person, you can't penetrate through the wall, because they won't go there. They won't go to, okay, yes, let's talk about mysticism. Let's talk about the interior domains. That's very interesting. Their belief system is too fixed for them to go there. But an open-minded scientist should absolutely go there, because they would be well aware of what quantum is saying. You can say, well, no, it's really pointing in the same direction as mysticism and spirituality has for millennia. So they're uniting in one conception of reality. So what I was saying earlier, whichever way you slice and dice this, whichever model you look at, you could look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It ends up in a transcendent self. You can look at psychology. You can look at science. You can look at spirituality, religion. It all ends up in the same place. Okay, there is a transcendent reality here. Maslow's hierarchy of needs points to a transcendent, transpersonal reality. Well, like, it all ends up in the same place, whichever pathway you take, which must tell you that, yeah, there is a transcendent reality. Call it whatever you want, frame it however you want. You end up there. All the great thinkers and teachers of this world come to the same conclusion eventually. Okay, there's another reality. This isn't it. Okay. So
Yes.
happy with number
Happy.
7. We move on to 8. John, you want to read number 8? So just read the translation. Yet think on this.
Yep. Yet think on this and learn the cause of faithlessness.
Just one moment. On YouTube, my wife's at the window, so I just need to.
Hello, pretty boy. Hello, boy. Hello, gorgeous boy. Have you had your lovely dinner? Have you?
Sorry about that. That was Gabriel's just hurt his he's hurt his arm.
All right.
So he just had it put in a sling. He's been to
Oh,
local hospital, so he came around to tell me. Which is quite
oh
sweet.
no.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit pushed for time as well, actually, John. So,
Are you okay? So
Don't
how much time do you have?
well,
Shall we crack on with the main event then? The text reading for today.
yeah.
Yeah, let's crack on. That would be good.
All right. So that's only 6 paragraphs. Maybe we can finish it. Okay. So start recording again. So now we conditions of peace. Page up. Let's go there. All right. Conditions of peace. This one's called. Make sure we get the right version in here. So the holy instant. Okay, so there we go, and then I've got some translation going on. So if you just read the translation, I think, to speed things up. Read the second paragraph. John, do you want to start?
Yeah. The holy instant is nothing more than a special case or an extreme example of what every situation is meant to be. The meaning that the remembrance of perfect love's purpose is given it is also given to every situation. It calls forth just the same suspension of faithlessness withheld and left unused, that faith might answer to the call of truth. The holy instant is the shining example, the clear and unequivocal demonstration of the meaning of every relationship and every situation seen as a whole. Faith has accepted every aspect of the situation, and faithlessness has not forced any exclusion on it. It is a situation of perfect peace, simply because you have let it be what it is. Yeah, I think that works, actually.
Oh. So we normally translate the holy instant as the now.
Okay. Yep.
So just see how that works for you. The now is nothing.
Now is nothing more than a special case.
No, because that's really all the holy instant is. The now is a shining example, clear and unequivocal demonstration of the meaning of every relationship and every situation seen as a whole. In the now moment, if you're truly rooted in the now, the meaning of everything comes into clear perception. Faith has accepted every aspect of the situation, and faithlessness has not forced any exclusion on it. If you're totally rooted in now, you're only in the present moment, then you have a holistic perception of the situation, is what he's really saying.
Mm.
You're not thinking about past or future at all. And it's a situation of perfect peace simply because you've let it be what it is. So you've really let eternity come in to this world, and through that awareness, reinterpret whatever the circumstances are, and see them differently. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice, clear, concise definition. Or
yeah, it's an entry point. It's an entry point. The now is the entry point to this other world. It's how we perceive the other world in this world. And he's saying the now. So that's why he's making a relation to connection between the now, the holy instant, and the holy relationship. And saying in that now moment, the relationship will be purified, and you see it holistically because you're not bringing in past and future and obscuring the truth of the oneness that you are.
Yeah.
and then you have faith. So the now is kind of the framework within which it all happens. So instead of being in past and future, the now is the frame, and now you get these faith and trust and love coming in, because you've excluded past and future. Faith has accepted every aspect of the situation. Faith has not forced any exclusion on it. So you're seeing, I think we should change that to just every true aspect. Faithlessness has not forced any exclusion on it. Faithlessness has not excluded anything. Has not excluded anything. That is true. What do you think about that translation?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Because you do have to, you have to discern between truth and illusion. So an aspect of a situation, if there's illusion in it, you must exclude that. But faithlessness will exclude what is true in order to perpetuate the illusion. And then he's saying the result of this is perfect peace, simply because you have let it be what it is. You've let situation of perfect peace simply because you've let it be what it truly is. What it truly is another opening. So the now is always an opening into eternity. So every situation is an opening into this other dimension if you let it be what it truly is. Okay?
Yeah.
Happy with that? Do you want to give a summary, or do you think we've done that already?
Yeah, I think we've done it really.
Okay. Fine. So number 2. Lucy, if you can read, can you read number 2 for us?
Yep. Let me just see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Number
I
2.
can make it bigger if you want me to.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
Can just blow it up to, as Iono say, we established that we is 120 is 25% more.
Brilliant.
We it's not a valid measurement. Okay, well, we'll put some syntax in there. That's why. Yeah, there we go. Is that better?
Oh yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So this simple courtesy.
This simple courtesy is all the remembrance of perfect love asks of you. Let truth be what it is. Do not intrude upon it. Do not attack it. Do not interrupt its coming. Let it encompass every situation and bring you peace. Not even faith is asked of you, for truth asks nothing. Let it enter, and it will call forth and secure for you the faith you need for peace. But rise you not against it, for against your opposition it cannot come. Wow.
But do not rise.
Yeah.
Do not rise against it. Or do not, I think just do not oppose it.
Yeah, do not oppose
It
it's
might be
fine.
much clearer. But do not oppose it. And rise not. Do not oppose it, for against your opposition. For it cannot come against your opposition. For it cannot come against your opposition.
Do not oppose it, for it cannot come against your opposition. Yeah. Yeah. Let truth be what it is. So if you're in the now, then there's nothing to attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
No past, no future. You're purely rooted in the now. Pure formless awareness must be there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there's
not
no
even faith.
ego.
Oh, it's great. And not even faith is asked of you. For truth asks nothing. Yeah. Yeah. You're not even, because the word faith in a way is denoting, you know, there's an opposite, isn't there? And it's like with pure formless awareness, there is no opposite. There's no, so there's no need even for that. Not even for faith. It's just truth.
In a pure like mystic experience, you know, I've had one of those. Yeah, faith is irrelevant. There's no. Oh, I have faith in this. It's just a pure experience.
Absolutely.
But what that experience does do is subsequent. You come out of that experience, out of that state, as you will. Then you go, that experience is a reference point. Now I can have faith in that other reality that was shown to me, and I hold to that faith in the illusion that there's something else. So we need faith in an ordinary, you know, state of consciousness, where we're just trying to deal with we deal with the illusions of the world. But ultimately, you know, the transcendent mystic experience, it doesn't require faith. It just is completely unto itself. So he's saying in the now, if you can really root yourself into the now and just experience it, then you go beyond faith. And that's ultimately where we're being pointed.
Definitely. Yeah.
So faith is just, it's a useful concept. It's part of vigilance, isn't it? Have faith in what's true. That's vigilance.
Yeah.
We need that while we're apparently in time and space and dealing with all the ego's lies. But in the end, you know, in the deep experience of truth, there's no faith required. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's where we're being directed to with this teaching.
Yeah.
Surrender into the now, let it enter, and it will call forth and secure for you the faith you need for peace. Yeah. So the experience, because it's such an amazing experience, it's so beautiful. You're like, well, it's not hard to have faith in that. It's lovely. I'm not opposing it. I'm not resisting it. I'm surrendering to it. And then, you know, if that experience goes and I'm now back in a sort of more normal state of consciousness, that experience now becomes the reference point for my faith. Oh, remember, that's available. That state is there. It's available because I've had the experience. So this is why ultimately it comes down to experience. And the true masters and teachers of this world are mystics because they've had the experience. So you can have faith in what you've experienced. If you have faith in merely a theology, an intellectual concept, someone else's theory, what someone else has taught you, that's not real faith, is it?
No.
It's not coming from your personal experience.
No.
So true faith comes from that experience, and he's directing us through the practice of his workbook lessons and studying the text in detail to have that experience, so that then yes, your faith gets strengthened. I mean that one experience, it's extraordinary. That one little 5 minutes experience that I had, because it really certainly wasn't longer than 5 minutes, is enough to absolutely change your life. It really changed my paradigm. It was like, oh wow, like actually I get it. That's what it is. So it goes beyond the theory and the concepts to like, it's an actual experience. And that gives you an understanding that years and years and years of studying theory cannot give you. So that's kind of what he's pointing to here. And he's saying that state's available anytime. You can experience this in the now.
Sure.
If you just open yourself to it, moment by moment by moment. It's there, it's available for you. Just don't block it, don't resist it. Because that's how it will be blocked. If you start going into time, for instance, you start thinking about the future and the past, well, then you're opposing it. It cannot come against your opposition because your mind is now thinking about something else. Okay? Happy with that?
Definitely. Absolutely. Happy with that.
All right. Let's go on to number 3. So, John, if you want to read translated version number 3 for us, please. Would you not want?
Would you not want to make a holy instant? Would you not want to make a now of every situation?
A now of every situation. Well, how about would you not want to
make every situation a now?
Enter the now. I think maybe that's the way to translate it. What do you think? Would you
Yeah,
not
that's
want to enter the now in every situation?
Yeah.
Such is the gift of faith.
For such is the gift of faith, freely given wherever faithlessness is laid aside, unused. And then the power of the remembrance of perfect love's purpose is free to use instead. This power instantly transforms all situations into one sure and continuous means for establishing his purpose.
Its purpose.
Its purpose. And demonstrating its reality.
Right, and then that's a small I. Isn't that interesting? Remembrance of perfect love's purpose is free to use instead. And then the power of the remembrance of perfect love's purpose is free to use instead. This power, we should really make that capital, shouldn't we? Because he's referring to the Holy Spirit here.
Yeah.
We'll make that a caps.
He's speaking.
This power instantly transforms all situations into one sure and continuous means for establishing its purpose and demonstrating its reality.
Yeah.
Capital.
What has been demonstrated has called for faith and has been given it. Now it becomes a fact from which faith can no longer be withheld. The strain of refusing faith to truth is enormous and far greater than you realize. But to answer truth with faith entails no strain at all. It's interesting, that last bit, actually. The strain of refusing faith to truth is enormous, far greater than you realize. To answer truth with faith entails no strain at all.
So ultimately, that's true. In our illusion of a separate self, we find often having faith in truth difficult. There's a lot of resistance. But he's pointing to the ultimate state of non-resistance, where we've surrendered to God, and it entails no strain at all because it's our natural state.
Yeah.
But once again, in that experience that I mentioned, it was the thing that characterized it was so easy. It was so light. It was like, oh, I don't have to do anything. There's no practice. There's nothing I have to do here. I'm just in it.
Yeah.
There's none of the stressing, straining, striving of the ego. And I think it happened because I just let go of the practice of the meditation. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to lie down. I don't have to do anything. And then it came. So this is what he's pointing us to here. It's like it's so easy. It's there for you. But initially, you're going to have to overcome the resistance of your ego, which might feel like a strain. So some people say, "Oh, no strain. This is like the most difficult thing I've ever done," because you're going up against all of your existing beliefs. But ultimately, it entails no strain at all, because it's your natural state, and it's so easy just to be who you are. That's who you are. You finally just letting go of all the obstacles to that and surrendering into that experience fully. Okay, so wanted to give a little summary of number 3. What's he saying there?
He's saying, take the invitation to enter the now, and let go of everything else.
Yeah. So you enter the now, this power, the remembrance of perfect love, and its purpose comes into your experience when you're in the now. And will demonstrate its purpose and its reality. That all happens in the holy instant or the now moment. Because that's all there is. There isn't past and future don't exist, so it can't happen there. It can't happen in an illusory time that you've miscreated in your mind. It has to happen in the now. So it's, it's reminiscent of the power of now. Eckhart Tolle is already saying everything happens in the now. That's the foundation. Your remembrance of pure formless awareness will happen in the now, or it won't happen. If your mind is in past and future, it's not going to come because you've blocked it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go, John, but I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tomorrow, same time, 12:30.
It'll be tomorrow evening. Actually, I'm out during the day.
Okay. Okay. Nice one. I'll send this once I finish this. I'll send it to the group so you have the translation.
Yes, that would be good. Actually, I'd like to see the summary at the end as well. Actually, did you do a summary at the end?
What of yesterday's?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I sent it to the group last night. You've got it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'll have a look at that.
So I did a summary at whatever time it's like. I think it's actually good being tired. It just kind of comes. You're like, okay, I'm tired. It's just like it has to just come from somewhere else. Like download it. Need some help here, Spirit. Show me. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jono. Nice to see you, Lucy.
All right.
Bye for now.
All right. Cheers, Drum. Lucy, are you happy? Are you happy to continue for a bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent. It's nice to have some company. I do the graveyard shift. I'm like, okay. Gotta finish. Yeah, it is. It's like it's like after 12 at night, and I'm like going through the tiredness barrier to finish. Like I want to finish first of all the session. So these recordings in future years, they're there. You can go. There's a recording. There's the whole session. Go listen to it. So when it's complete of the whole section, and then also the translation's done. So then it's like, okay, that's another section done and dusted. And we'll ultimately get I think a really comprehensive course program that has so much deeper material for people to go. Imagine a discussion session on every section of the text, every workbook lesson. You can really dive deeply. That's what's unfolding. So it's actually quite exciting. Even at 12:30 at night, it's like, okay, keep going. Keep going. All right. So happy with number 3?
Number 3. Are we not on number 3? No, we're on number 4 now, aren't we?
Yeah, and we just finished 3. So if you're happy with that, we'll
yeah, good with that.
Move swiftly on to number 4.
To you who have acknowledged the call of your Redeemer.
I'm just going to paste it in here, so we'll translate it as we go. Yep. To you have acknowledged the call of your Redeemer.
To you have acknowledged the call of your Redeemer. That's a very old-fashioned sentence.
It is. Redeemer, yeah. So the Holy Spirit. Should we translate that?
Absolutely. The Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Call of your... So Holy Spirit's remembrance of pure formless awareness, remembrance of perfect love doesn't really fit there. The call of your...
what about just the call of Holy Spirit? Do you acknowledge the call of Holy Spirit?
How about...
Not your anything, is it? Oh, okay. Your awakener.
How about awakener? Because that's what Redeemer means, of your awakener.
The strain of not responding to its call seems to be greater than before. This is not so. Before, the strain was there, but you attributed it to something else, believing that the something else produced it. This was never true, for what the something else produced was sorrow and depression, sickness and pain, darkness and dim imaginings of terror, cold fantasies of fear and fiery dreams of hell. And it was nothing but the intolerable strain of refusing to give faith to truth and see its evident reality. Yeah, so it's like there's one purpose. the purpose is to answer that call from Holy Spirit, and everything else is everything that shows up, the depression and the pain and the that we attribute to other things. Oh, it's because ... It's just because we have this, I don't know, do we call it the kind of existential crisis of not answering the call of Holy Spirit?
Yeah, because we're in resistance, and so all of these things, the sickness and the pain and the darkness and the depression, are there to show us, look, this isn't working. Your thought system is not working. So you need to change. And usually, when there's lots of resistance, it takes pain. It takes a lot of pain to crack that resistance. And finally you say, okay, I'm on my knees here. I surrender. Yes, God help me. Please help. Something help me. I don't know what, but something else. I need some help here. And that's when you really start the spiritual journey, because you've asked for help from deeper source, another part of your mind, another reality, and you're willing to then go beyond the ego's very narrow worldview and say, well, actually, maybe I was wrong. So often, these scientists, if someone's very fixated on that belief, they need to suffer in order to undo that. Otherwise, everything's going okay in my scientific materialist world. Okay, well, I'll just stay there. It's fine. Okay, my life's reasonably comfortable, no major crises, life's kind of going along, I'm all right. So why question the whole belief? That seems like a lot of trouble to go to when I'm not really that unhappy. But so the awakening comes when they get really unhappy, when the existing belief system just shows its limitations, which it will at some point. It doesn't go on smoothly forever, because it's going to change. So it might go on seemingly smoothly for a few years, but then something changes, sickness enters, or depression, or someone dies, or whatever, and then it's like, oh, actually, what I thought was okay is actually not okay. And so I'm very unhappy now, and that's then the opening for Spirit to say, well, okay, listen to me, I'll help you out of this.
Yeah, that's the way it works, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah. It shouldn't.
It is.
You don't need to have pain to awaken, but instead, usually you will experience, you will experience a degree of pain because you have a resistance. You're not willing to just accept straight away. Oh, okay, yes, all right, I get it, Holy Spirit. I'm letting it all go and just surrendering completely to you. It's phases of awakening, and we have a little willingness, but that willingness usually comes when we've suffered. Because if you haven't suffered, why would you look elsewhere? You go, well, everything's okay in my scientific materialist world. I've got the creature comforts that it offers, got enough money, got a reasonable standard of life. I might have a good relationship. Everything seems to be going along all right. Well, why would I fundamentally change my belief system then? It's working. So we need the cracking of the shell. And often, as I was saying the other night, that only happens in later life. It seems to go along okay for a while, and then you hit sort of midlife, and often the classic midlife crisis comes along. You go, like, what is it all for? Something triggers it. You lose something, and you just go, well, like, what's the point? All this materialist stuff that I've indulged in, that I thought was so important. And whatever this event, has cracked that open and gone, actually, does that actually mean anything? And then you have an existential crisis, which is opening into a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Midlife crisis, existential crisis is always an opportunity for spiritual awakening. What happens in our society is that gets seen as some kind of mental illness, and you go and visit a psychiatrist and he drugs you. And he gives you drugs to stop the spiritual awakening from happening.
Exactly.
Not very helpful at all.
Yeah.
You get put on Prozac and become a zombified person, just able to kind of function on some level in this world, but the awakening is stopped. So you actually need to experience the pain. You have to experience it to undo it.
Jono, it's also, it happens with, this really enrages me, but it happens in old people's home. They give them these drugs that just they kind of mong them out, you know, make them really unresponsive, really unresponsive, because, you know, because then they're easier to handle, they're easier to deal with. It's absolutely outrageous that, in fact, at the time of your life when you're more likely to have these awakenings, because everything is slowed down, and you know, you can start to really evaluate and look at the sadness and the, you know, begin to look back on your life. It's like they do this strange thing, kind of reminiscing, but reminiscing the nice stuff, kind of keeping it all nice. And
that's nostalgia, isn't it?
Nostalgia,
which is a delusion, because it's all about the past. Oh, it was so great in the past, but you're rooted in past consciousness. You're not present when you're in nostalgia. So although it seems to be nice, it's still a defense against the now, the holy instant, because you're not now. Definitely. And then you get lost in that, and it's like you see it in old people, don't you? They're like, oh no, it was so great in the past, and you know, and they're living there, but like, you're not living now. That's like, the past is over. You're 60 years ago. That's just a dream, you know. Like whatever you're bringing up, it's just a memory. Surely it's so much richer to be in the now, right now, and be fully present and engaged in life now, than be living in this, you know, past nostalgic conception, which never even really happened. It never happened. It's a memory of what never really happened.
I know. Oh God.
but they hold on to it because they deny the now. They're denying, well, right now I can actually experience love and peace and joy. It doesn't matter whether I'm 80 or 50 or 20. I can experience it right now. It's always been available.
Absolutely.
It's a, you know, as people get older, those defenses, because they've done it for so many years, it's just such an entrenched defense mechanism. They can't break through it. It's too much into. If I went to my father and said, you know, actually there's only now, and the past doesn't exist, it's just way too much of a mind shift for him to get his head around at this stage. So he's not going to accept it. You need to start doing this stuff. Ideally, you know, the entry point, I think, is in your sort of middle of your life. There's that midlife where, you know, if you can start getting it there and awakening then you know, the rest of your life is going to be on a different track, and you won't end up in an old age home being drugged to high heaven and you know, becoming a zombie, because you've awakened, and you're like, actually, you know, I'm awake at 80, and my mind is free, and I'm young. I'm young in my mind. You know, old age is really it's a mental disease. I think it's a part of a self concept based on sickness and death. And it's not pretty. I mean, I spent some time. Wow, the guy. Remember I mentioned the psychiatrist I worked with? He was an end of life psychiatrist. He did aged patients. So I went into some of these places. Oh my God, it was like The Walking Dead. You go into these care homes, and you see these people, and they're just sitting there, and they are zombies, man. There's like, God, what has happened to the mind here? There's no life here. They're just like.
No, it's one particular drug that they give them. You see, my dad was given that drug, and I went to visit him a few days after, and I said, "What has happened to you, Dad?" He said, "Lou, they've given me something." I said, "What the fuck is it?" And I got the packet, and I said, "No, do you want this, Dad?" He said, "No, don't." He came off it. It was hellish, because he had to come down from. He maybe hadn't been on it for that long, but
well, it's
he went through hell, and I think he went through hell, but I think in a way that's what cracked it. That's what cracked the nut was just the difficulty that he went through. And what I see is somebody who's, you know, he's definitely challenging his perceptions now.
Yeah, at 90, what is he, 93?
93.
It's extraordinary. It's like, wow.
It's extraordinary.
Waking up at 93, but there's, you know, it's never too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Well, you know, well done for pulling him out of that, because I mean, if he'd stayed on those for years, it's just like your mind just. I think that it's like making them to vegetables. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Really,
it's terrible.
What the drug industry does.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an industry. honestly, I realized after spending a few months, like just getting a taste of it, I was like, this industry shouldn't really exist. This shouldn't be the way we treat people with drugs, and the whole model needs to go, really.
Yep.
Which is probably, you know, why in the end I couldn't work with my my business partner at the time, because it was like, fundamentally your model is flawed, and he acknowledged it. He said it was excuse my French, but it's worth saying. So he spoke to the head of Discovery Health, right? So that's the biggest medical aid in South Africa, one of the largest in the world, actually. They're huge. And the guy said to him, well, look, you know, Ryan, this is the way it works. He says the system is a triple F. He said, what does that mean? He said it's fragmented. So everything's like fragmented. There's no unity. It's fee for service. Everyone wants fees for their services. So how much can I get for, you know, whatever I'm doing? And it's fucked.
And it's fucked.
This is the head of the whole thing, saying, look, the system is totally fucked. It's dysfunctional.
Yes.
But this is what we're working with. So let's just carry on and make some money in the fucked system.
Yeah.
Not change it.
Yeah.
Not transform it, not say, oh, actually, you know, the system is broken, let's create a new system that actually works. Let's just keep playing the dysfunctional system because we're all making money. So hey, we're making money out of a screwed system.
That's right.
Let's carry on.
We can all have nice big cars and big houses.
That's just totally, I mean, what you know, the whole system, the purpose of the system then is incorrect fundamentally. There's a flaw
it is.
in the purpose of it. It should not exist then, because the system should be for healing. The only reason it should exist is it actually facilitates genuine healing. If the system doesn't do that, it shouldn't exist. And so I think the reason why, you know, I ended up not being able to work with him, he basically said, I can't work with you, and he blamed his partners. But the reason why was because this model, this mindfulness, whatever you want to call it, meditation, actually undoes the entire system. You don't need it if you approach it from a mindful perspective. If you use meditation, if you awaken people, you don't want to be drugging them. You really don't. It would maybe be in an extreme situation where someone has a psychotic delusions or something. Okay, maybe you just need to stabilize them and get them to some treatable form where you can actually talk to them and you can start working with these other tools. But that would be a very short-term intervention. This wouldn't be like, oh, we're sticking you on the drugs for the rest of your life. It would be like, no, we understand, you know, this is a short-term emergency measure to stabilize you. Maybe we keep you on it for a week or two just to stabilize you into a state where we can actually.
I think so, for stabilization,
And we can now work with you and get you into some kind of meditation and so on. Maybe there's a case for it then, but that's like 5% of cases. But the majority is just like stick them on the drugs and you'd be there for the rest of your life on these powerful toxic chemicals that are doing, you know, things to the body and the mind.
Yeah.
That really they haven't tested these properly.
No, they haven't
tested. And the interactions, if you're on 2 or 3, you know, those interactions between the chemicals are not properly tested. And you can't really, because everyone's going to interact with them differently. So you don't know how someone's going to react to that particular chemical as opposed to someone else, because everyone's got, you know, different reactions. So I mean, it's just it's a mad system. You go, this is just insane that we think that this is the way to treat people, and this is called healing. Just but I think it's a paradigm that needs to change, and it will change in our lifetime. I think that the whole system will come down with all the other systems and go, really? Now look at it in history and they go, really? You actually did that? That was just like barbaric. How could you do that?
I know.
But actually the worst form of sort of harm is actually to deny someone their true mind, to deny their true consciousness.
Yes.
And when you drug them, you do that. So it's like a mental prison you're putting them in.
Yeah, totally.
Through the drugs. I mean, that's a denial of their free will and their right to make free choices, and you know, and their right to find truth. You're denying their right to find truth by drugging them, because they'll never find it.
Yeah.
So it's really rather evil. If you could call
It's,
it.
I agree 100%. I think it's evil. Yeah, it is. It's outrageous. The many ways of just shutting down consciousness. I don't know how do you feel that way about fluoride?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but I think any chemical that shuts off your spiritual awareness is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I went and had my teeth, looked at.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a teeth checkup when I was in South Africa a few months ago. On the insistence of my mother, because I'm like, my teeth are fine. It's just like, no, you've got to go. All right, mother, you pay for it. I'll go. I'll make you happy. Go get my teeth checked. I know they're fine, but if it makes you happy. But then she said, you want fluoride? I'm like, no, thanks.
No.
You're not putting toxic chemicals into my body. My mom was like, oh no, but fluoride was really good for you when you were kids, because that was what they were told. You got strong teeth because of fluoride. I'm going, well, is that really the case? And even if it is the case, if your teeth are stronger, but it poisoned the rest of your system, is it worth it? I don't think so.
Totally.
But we live in a chemically, our society's got so brainwashed by the medical industry that treating seeming problems with chemicals is now considered normal.
Yeah, well, it's all those industries actually meet at one point. They have an apex, and it's chemicals, it's mining, it's because fluoride is actually a byproduct of aluminium mining, I think. I mean, you really don't want aluminium in your body, do you? Let's face it.
What they did, I mean, you see how it works. They go, oh, we've got this byproduct from one of our industries. How can we sell it and make some money? Let's sell it into the medical industry, because we control that too, and make some money from this byproduct. Even if it's not good for people, we don't care. We'll just market it as good. We'll tell them it's good for them, and then we've got another angle. So it's a thought system. What you start to see is that it all interacts. The egoic thought system, in the same way as spirit, is one thought system, and each part of the system supports the others, and so then you get this really dark, limited, evil system. And all of the components seem to reinforce each other.
Yeah.
If you start challenging one aspect of it, you challenge the whole thing, because ultimately it's all going to fall apart if you bring truth into it. So that's why there's so much resistance from that system to this kind of spiritual teaching, because it's like, well, wherever you start, go into, say, the medical industry and start cracking it there, that cracks the whole thing, because it's part of a thought system that's really designed by the ego simply to keep us under control and to keep us from spiritually awakening. That's the only real purpose.
Well, absolutely. That's how I see it, and I've seen it like that since I was in my late teens. I think I was quite hot on this. I was quite early starter on this, and I remember having my daughter and researching about fluoride, and because I really was seeking, I mean, really literally spiritually seeking, when I started journaling at the age of 8. Really at the age of 8, I was looking for like, who is this God I'm praying to? I want him to make himself known to me. Show up, please, praying, show me. And then learning so much about the blocks in culture, the blocks to that, the blocks to joy and just being your natural self.
Yeah, so
I think
you came into this life with previous lifetimes of seeking, and it's not your first lifetime.
It's not the first lifetime of seeking.
And you've been on spiritual paths before, and then that awareness comes with you, and you're like, I'm not really buying this program. I'm 8, but it doesn't kind of stack up for me, and so you start questioning at a young age.
And I couldn't understand why the people around me couldn't answer my questions. It was like, why don't you know about this? Why can't you tell me? I was super, super disappointed.
Wow, because they don't know themselves. They're in the illusion. So,
well, I even joined. So there was my sister was 18, and she joined a spiritual kind of group that's worldwide. She's still in it. So I started going from that really young age, and And I was there thinking, you know, even as a young child, but this, I feel like I'm pushing. I feel like this is moralistic, that I have to be X, Y, and Z to be good, to be, you know, and I never really felt like I was good enough for it, which was a problem, but actually helped me to orient towards my own roots, really, rather than religious roots.
Well,
Jono,
yeah.
I think Iona might actually meet us in a minute. She might come on board because she's just come back.
Okay, that'd be nice.
And she was listening in a moment ago. So
Yeah,
she
I think
might
I heard her in the
actually,
background. So
yeah. So she might join us. This is a great conversation, though. Do you think we should move on to the next?
yeah, perhaps we should.
Be great, just because I have some
We could
washing to do.
talk for hours about the system and
I
what it does.
know.
But it's a projection. What you start to understand is it's a projection of a thought system.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that clearly, it becomes so clear and obvious what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, if you are a scientific materialist and you think, you know, the world is just external and you accept it on face value, you just cannot see that. And you know, a conversation with someone like me is very challenging because for you, because it's like, well, you're coming from a different perspective. You've got access to a deeper dimension of a reality than I had, and that is perceived as threatening. So I speak to my my parents, who are scientific materialists, and it's like, it's a brick wall, man. I'm just not. It's like you just can't penetrate through it. It's extraordinary. It's like, you know, because they're just like, no, the system is right, the system is correct, this is how it works, and I'm like going, but like, how can you just accept that on face value? How can you just accept what they're telling you is true? Because I've done all this deep inquiry, into my own mind and who am I, and they've got none of that. They haven't done it. So how can they possibly relate to me and understand me if they just think, okay, well, the external world is real and I'm a person in the external world, and that's my model of reality? I mean, it's like, how do you even speak to them? It's you're speaking a different language. So, you know,
I think you keep speaking in a way. I mean, for me anyway, I keep talking about it, and then I find that, you know, little by little, there's more of an openness. It's strange as death comes nearer. There's a sense of just more openness, just kind of things dropping away, structures dropping away is what I notice with my dad.
Well,
So
we'll see. I don't think it's happening with my dad.
Okay.
I think it's just going more into. It's more like, I think you go one way or another. It's either you're going to go more, you're going to do that and open up, or you go actually more into your fixed, you know, it's fear and it's because he's scared. Actually, I think he's scared. He doesn't actually know what's going to happen after. You know, you're going to die. Okay, well then, what's going to happen? Your whole your whole world that you valued so much, the world of form, is going to disappear. Then what? I don't think he knows. So, but he's clinging to the illusion to try and keep himself safe. Must be a very scary place to be, actually. It's like, oh, I'm going to die and I have no idea what's going to happen. And like, I haven't really worked out that I'm a mind and that I exist eternally. So who knows what he believes? I just cease to exist. That, you know, that's a game over. Like because that's, if you're scientific materials, that's what you have to believe. There's nothing else. Okay, so that's it. Game over. My consciousness ends. I end. Termination date. The moment I die physically. Okay, that's a bit scary, I would think. It's like termination of my consciousness. I don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like everyone's got the opportunity to go there. There's many paths available if he's open to it. So, certainly not going to listen to me, that's for sure. No. All right. So happy with number 4.
I am.
Really, I mean, to summarize that, he's just saying the strain, you think there's no strain, but the strain lies in all of the sorrow, pain, sickness, suffering, limitations that you experience in your world. And that's where the strain comes. And that's actually the denial of truth that you've been experiencing all your life. You just didn't recognize that that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So number it's number 5. We are on
5.
1, 6. Okay, so Let's just whack that in there. Okay, so number 5, crucifixion of the sun. That's actually is the translation I've just done there. So if you read, just read the translation.
Okay.
Such was the crucifixion.
Yeah, okay. Such was the crucifixion of the Son of pure formless awareness of perfect love, the extension of pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Yeah, we'll just make it perfect love. It's easier to read.
Such was the crucifixion of the extension of perfect love. His faithlessness did this to it.
Yeah, so it's a translation. So it's faithlessness.
It's faithlessness.
Yeah, so we are the extension. We're not male or female. We are this extension of the mind.
Yeah.
Our faithlessness did this to
it. Think carefully before you let yourself use faithlessness against it. For he is risen. And you have accepted the cause of his awakening as yours. You have assumed your part in his redemption, and you are now fully responsible to it. Fail it not now, for it has been given you to realize what your lack of faith in it must mean to you. His awakening is your only purpose. See only this in every situation, and it will be a means for bringing only this being awakening, being the purpose in every situation.
Yeah, so maybe a bit of translation here. You've assumed your part in its redemption. I think in its awakening rather than redemption. In your part in its awakening, and you're now fully responsible to it. So you recognize you are the extension. The it is the extension of perfect love. This is your true self. What has been given you to realize, so do not fail it now. Do not fail it now. For it has been given you to realize what your lack of faith in it must mean to you. For, this is a very clumsy way of saying it, you must realize. Well, you must realize what your lack of faith in it. For you must realize, you must realize what your lack of faith in it must mean to you. Or maybe you should realize. Has been given you to realize. So you should realize. Should realize by now. How about that? It's quite nice. Should realize by now what your lack of faith in it must mean to you. So all of this mind training has taught you that your lack of faith in who you really are, the extension of perfect love, what this actually means. The consequences of denying it. So his awakening, its awakening is your only purpose. See only this in every situation. See only this purpose in every situation, and it will be a means for bringing only this into your experience. How about that? And every situation will be a means for bringing only this purpose. into your experience. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you want to read it from the top?
Such was the crucifixion of the extension of perfect love. Its faithlessness did this to it. Think carefully before you let yourself use faithlessness against it. For it is risen, and you have accepted the cause of its awakening as yours. You have assumed your part in its awakening, and you are now fully responsible to it. Do not fail it now, for it you should
No,
realize. For
that
if?
shouldn't be there. No, it is given you to realize.
Oh.
Not that I changed it. For you should realize by now. It's given you to realize. Should realize by now. What your lack of faith in it must mean to you.
For you should realize by now what your lack of faith in it must mean to you. Its awakening is your only purpose. See this only purpose in every situation, and every situation will be a means for bringing only this purpose into your experience. So it's like, you know, you now know, you've now had a taste. I guess he's talking about the crucifixion being, as it's the extension of perfect love, it's our, not only Yeshua's crucifixion, but the crucifixion that we experience in our daily lives.
Yeah, his crucifixion was really just symbolic of what we've done to ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, and that it's just a lack of faith that actually creates that perception that you are being crucified, that you are being, however, you have accepted the cause of its awakening as yours. So it sounds like, you know, you have accepted because you are now questioning, you're making this inquiry in your life as to these worlds, you know, the world of form and the world of spirit. And now that you have kind of like picked up the new perception, basically bloody well use it and do not fail it now. I'm
going to change this to it has arisen. I think it has arisen.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah,
it has arisen in your awareness.
Nice.
In your experience.
Yeah, that's good.
Has arisen in your awareness. I think that's okay. And you have accepted the cause of its awakening as yours.
Yeah.
As your own.
Yeah.
So he's saying you know you've come some way if you're reading this, you know, you well into this course, chapter 17. So you should by now be aware that yes, something else has arisen in your awareness. You actually have accepted the cause of its awakening, which is source, as your own. This is your own source, your own cause, and perceive only this purpose in every situation. That your only purpose here is to use every situation for awakening.
Yeah.
Every situation will be a means for bringing only this purpose into your experience. And that happens in the now moment. That's when it happens.
That happens in the now, exactly.
No. Yeah. So staying rooted in the now, in the holy instant, allows this then to unfold moment by moment. There's a lot of people like, well, how do I forgive all the time? I mean, I'm in the world. Like, am I supposed to deny the world when I'm in the world? Like, oh, this isn't happening. No, that's not what he's meaning. You're just staying rooted in the underlying awareness. You've done the work, and you know, conceptually understand. Okay, my experience here is ultimately an illusion.
Yeah.
But I don't go around going, oh well, that chair's not real, and that. You go, no, I'm just rooted in a deeper awareness that is beyond this awareness, beyond all the judgments and the perceptions of the ego. I'm rooted in this deeper awareness because I've done the deeper spiritual work, and now that awareness is what's guiding me in my journey. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
And then every situation is a means for this awareness to come into my experience and to be there and to spread it to others. a
Yes.
deeper awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's being in the world but not of the world.
Mm.
Oh. So it's not easy, and that's why we mind train. But really, it's being able to take all of this, download it, be like, yes, I get it, but I can still operate in the world quite functionally, just knowing that none of it's ultimately real, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I've accepted that process, that none of it's ultimately real, but
Yeah.
I'm rooted in what is real, which is, this pure, this perfect love that's in me. And
Yeah.
so it's okay. I can operate in what's unreal for a while. It's not a big deal, because I'm rooted in this true awareness. And that's now guiding everything. So it's okay, because it's with me wherever I go, even in the stream world.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're just training our minds to do,
Yeah.
which is simple in concept, but the practice of it is okay. But keep letting go of whatever illusions you have that are tying you into this world, that cause the friction and the stress and the strain and the suffering. Just keep letting go of it, because those things are what stop you from accessing this deeper awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've given quite a good summary there. Happy with that?
Happy.
Do not fail it now. Just perceive only this purpose in every situation. And number 6, I think this is the last one, actually.
Yeah.
So number 6 is read number 6, and I'll translate it.
Okay. When you accepted truth as the goal for your relationship, you became a giver of peace, as surely as your source gave peace to you. For the goal of peace cannot be accepted apart from its conditions, and you had faith in it, for no one accepts what he does not believe in, what he does not believe is real. Your purpose is not changed and will not change, for you accepted what can never change, and nothing that it needs to be forever changeless can you now withhold from it. Your release is certain. Give as you have received, and demonstrate that you have risen far beyond any situation that could hold you back and keep you separate from it whose call you answered. It's nice when you accepted the truth as the goal of your relationship, you became a giver of peace. It's lovely. Like, you receive in order to give. So it recycles. Yeah.
The goal of peace cannot be accepted apart from its conditions. You had faith in it. No one accepts what he does not believe is real. So the conditions of peace are truth. You must believe in oneness. That's the condition for peace. The purpose has not changed and will not change. We accepted what can never change. Okay, so it's timeless, it's changeless. Nothing that it needs to be forever changeless can you now withhold from it. The release is certain. Give as you have received, and demonstrate that you've risen far beyond any situation that could hold you back, keep you separate from it whose call you answered.
Mm.
And it is the, let's just see what the original will be, him going to the Holy Spirit. From him whose call you answered. Okay. So, yeah, do you want to give a little summary of that? Any
Well,
thoughts on that?
I guess what I received from it is that So you have now this understanding, you now have this awareness, the awareness of pure formless awareness, and it's a gift because it's the truth of all your relationships, and then you become a bearer of that gift, where you give that gift of peace to others, and therefore continue the you I suppose you pass it on, or you pay it forward somehow. You give it as a gift, the peace. And as you do so in full faith, so you are released. So you just keep being released. You keep offering peace, you keep being released. Yeah.
Your release is certain. Give as you have received. So you receive the peace from oneness, and then you give it. You operate in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
So what else can you do? You can't not give what you've received.
Yeah.
And as you give it to others, you confirm that you receive it. That's how it works. So as I give, I receive. If I keep radiating peace, then I'm confirming that peace is mine. And actually, I have an unlimited supply of it.
Yeah.
You go into the abundance. There's no limitation in peace. There's no limitation in love.
Yeah.
These are unlimited. So I can give them freely, and the more I give them, the more I experience them. So it's not the ego's scarcity thought system.
No.
At all. It's abundant peace, love, and joy that exists, and the more I give them, the more I experience them.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's not going to want that?
Well, we know the ego. Oh no, I don't want eternal love, peace, and joy, unlimited love, peace, and joy forever. I want pain and suffering and misery and sickness and death instead.
Yeah.
I prefer my separate self to the eternal, one self that I really am. It's bonkers. I mean, you go, that's just totally insane.
Insane.
But that's what it is. That's why he's saying, look, this is totally insane. Don't try and make sense of it. The ego doesn't make sense, and it never will make sense. You can't make sense of it. So you just got to understand it. Is what he's training us to do with this course, and let go of it and say, okay, well, when I understand the delusion and the insanity, it becomes very obvious to me, and I'll let it go. I'm not going to believe that anymore. It's clearly insane. But if you don't see the insanity, then you think it's sanity, and you think this is real, and this thought system is true.
Yeah.
So that's why he's training us through this course to just see it for what it is, and not spare it. Just see it for what it is. It's insane. Just drop the whole thing. Let it all go, and go completely into the spirit. Hold nothing back. As demonstrated, you've risen far beyond any situation that could hold you back, keep you separate from it whose call you answered. So nothing can really hold you back except your own decision.
Yeah.
To be held back. You can, in any situation, no matter what the ego is showing you, no matter how difficult it is on the level of form, you can always let it go and choose to let it go and say, I'm not going to be held back by this. I want pure formless awareness of perfect love, and only that. Nothing else should come of the situation. And then you've got the fixed purpose he's talking about. Your purpose has not changed and will not change, for you accepted what can never change. So now you have purpose. You have a true purpose. You have a purpose that is unwavering in the face of all illusions, that will not change throughout time, throughout your life. This purpose will not change. So finally, you come to the one purpose that is true. Do you think how many false purposes we give ourselves in this world?
Yeah.
My purpose is, when we're younger, my purpose is to leave school and get good degree and get a job, and my purpose is to make money. My purpose is to find a partner. My purpose is to have a family, and all of these purposes, and that changes as your life changes.
And because we are
one purpose never changes.
Because we're streamed into that, aren't we? We're indoctrinated that from an early age. That actually that equates to safety. We have to stay safe.
Yeah.
And everything is it's all seems to be in service of belonging. You know, in order that we belong to society, we need to fulfill these particular remits.
Yeah. But it's what you're belonging to really is the ego's thought system. It's trying to get you into its thought system as a nice, slave to its delusional system of separation, suffering, sickness, and death. And society is the construct, is the systematic projection of the ego outwards. So we look at, say, the integral model on a system level. You know, our society is a projection of a thought system.
Yeah.
And that thought system is based on the ego. So of course you're going to get systems that perpetuate ego and that are really enslaving. It's a prison. It's a matrix for the mind. It's as the matrix teaches us, the prison for the mind that is pretty effective for most people. They're imprisoned by it. They think it's real.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of questioning and virtual practice to undo it and awaken from it.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be the minority. You know, the awakened ones are never the majority. The awakened ones are always in the minority because you've got to go up against the system. The system is not promoting awakening. It's promoting staying fast asleep, remaining there. So then you become the enemy of the system, as you know, this is very well depicted in the Matrix. The system doesn't like people who are going to challenge it. So then there's these mechanisms to control and suppress. So drugs is a big one. Yeah. In fact, in the latest Matrix, I don't know if you saw it, Matrix 4.
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Matrix Resurrections. Yeah. It was another critique on modern society, and the architect had become the analyst. So actually, the psychiatrist was was in charge of the whole thing. He was now in charge of the Matrix, which was a commentary on our society. It's like, oh, okay, so actually these psychiatrists, through the mechanism of mind control, and they drugged Neo, they'd given him all these pills to suppress his awakening. It was a commentary on on modern society and how it keeps us under control through drugs. So worth a watch at some point. Maybe we'll do it as a movie evening.
I think that would be a great thing to do the next one. Jono, that's us with the lessons, isn't it? It's just somebody's just arrived and they're just about to drive to Edinburgh, and I'd love to say hello.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So you want to go?
I'm going to go.
All right. Thanks.
That was fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Right. Yeah. Great. So I'll send this. I'm just going to do the summary quickly, and then I'll send it out. So you've got
fabulous.
Yeah. Maybe we can chat further tomorrow about tomorrow afternoon about the retreat and stuff at the end, because it's a few things we need to still discuss. So.
Okay.
If you can join tomorrow and get Iona on the call.
Yeah, lovely. We'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
So ciao for now. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so we're just going to do the personalized executive summary. Key message of the section is that I must have faith. Listen to the call. Let's go back to number 1. Okay, so there's the now. I must bring the now, stay rooted in the now. Let the truth come. So I must keep my awareness in the now. So allow truth to direct my thoughts, words, and actions. My awareness is in the now. There will be no strain. I won't even need to have faith. Experience will be simply be there. Accept truth as the goal for your relationship. All the pain and suffering I've ever experienced is really a result of my resistance to accepting truth. And the strain, sense of strain, all sense of strain, pain and suffering I've ever experienced really results in my resistance to accepting the truth. I accept the one unchanging truth. It is pure formless awareness of perfect love. As my only purpose and goal. The one unchanging truth of pure formless awareness. Accept the my only purpose and goal in life. And in doing this, give peace. Give peace to everyone. Human relationship as I have received. As I've received it from my source. Okay, so I think that's okay. Key message of this section is that I must keep my awareness in the now to allow truth to direct my thoughts, words, and actions. My awareness is only in the now, there will be no strain, and I won't even need to have faith in truth because my experience of truth will simply be there. All sense of strain, pain, and suffering I've ever experienced is really a result of my resistance to accepting the truth. I accept the one unchanging truth of perfect love as my only purpose and goal in life, and in doing this, give peace to everyone with whom I'm in relationship as I've received it from my source, as I've experienced peace. I experience deep peace. And and give peace to everyone with whom I'm in relationship. Oh, so it's really just a call to give our minds to spirit in the now moment. Let go of all sense of strain, pain, and suffering. Accepting the one unchanging truth of perfect love is my only purpose and goal in life, and in so doing, and I will experience deep peace, genuine peace, and give peace to everyone in my relationship. So I experience myself, and then I relate to others from this place. I give peace as I have received it. So as we give, so we receive. So I think that brings us to the end of the session. I will send this out, this document out to you. If you're in the Art of Letting Go program, you'll get it on Telegram very shortly. So you can read it tonight and listen to this recording as you read it. So I wish you good practicing and a very peaceful, connected afternoon and evening ahead. Namaste.